Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the Unwritten Adventures, I'd love to know where in the world you are watching from tonight and what time it is for you right now. Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. Tonight, we find ourselves following Finn, the boy hero, not into dungeons or battles, but into a quieter space. A place where time slows, where the rush of adventure gives way to something softer, gentler. Imagine a lake tucked into a hidden corner of ooh, its surface catching the pale light of a morning sun that spills like honey across the water. The edges of the lake are lined with tall reeds, their thin stalks swaying in a rhythm almost imperceptible, as though the earth itself were breathing slowly, quietly. Finn sits at the very edge, legs dangling just above the gentle ripples, a simple fishing rod in his hands. The line drifts lazily across the water, and he waits, not with urgency, but with a patient calm that seems foreign when we remember him in the heat of adventure. There's a softness here in the sound of the lake. Tiny waves lap at the stones along the shore. Occasionally, a bird flits overhead. It's called distant and melodic, or a fish breaks the surface in a tiny shimmer of silver. The world feels almost suspended, like it has paused just to watch him. Finn's gaze drifts across the water, taking in the ripples that stretch and fold like silk. In these quiet moments, there is no urgency, no enemy to face, no quest demanding action. There's only the lake, the light, and the soft, unhurried rhythm of life moving around him. As he waits, Finn's thoughts wander in gentle meanders, like the clouds overhead, stretched thin across a vast, pale sky. Perhaps he remembers the chaos of the last adventure, the strange creatures he fought or befriended. And yet here, by this calm water, none of it feels pressing. He thinks about the moments he rarely speaks aloud, the little victories that no one sees, the times he helped someone quietly, or laughed at a small, silly joke, alone in the middle of nowhere. These moments are small, yet they carry a warmth, a quiet courage that doesn't need recognition. Finn shifts slightly, brushing his fingers against the water, watching as tiny ripples spread outward. It's mesmerizing, hypnotic even, and it seems to echo the way his mind wanders. Sometimes he imagines what life would be like without the constant pull of adventure. Just days like this, simple and slow. Perhaps he would lie in the grass all afternoon, tracing shapes in the clouds, or skip stones across the lake until the sun begins to melt into the horizon. There's a kind of poetry in this stillness, a rhythm that doesn't demand anything but presence. Around the lake, small signs of life whisper quietly. A dragonfly hovers above the water, wings shimmering in colors that catch the sunlight. Leaves rustle softly in the gentle breeze, and the faint scent of wildflowers drifts lazily through the air. Even the distant hum of the trees seems like it has paused, bending its attention toward Finn, letting him exist in a world of soft textures and muted sounds. There is no rush, no battle to win, no spell to cast. Here the adventure is in noticing, in observing, in simply being. Finn leans back slightly, the warmth of the sun on his skin mixing with the gentle cool of the lake air. His fishing rod rests loosely in his hands, forgotten for a moment, as he gazes at a small ripple spreading across the water. He wonders what thoughts the fish might have, or if they even think at all. Perhaps they, too, enjoy the quiet, a gentle rhythm of existence beneath the surface, moving through a world they can't see entirely but feel entirely nonetheless. Finn's breathing slows, matching the cadence of the lake and the rustling reeds. In this moment, he is not a hero or a legend, not a boy destined for quests or battles. He is simply Finn, a quiet observer of the world, a part of the calm that surrounds him. There is a strange comfort in these days, Adventure teaches courage, teaches boldness, but quiet teaches patience. It teaches noticing the small miracles that slip past when eyes are focused only on danger or glory. Finn notices how the light filters through the trees, casting soft patterns across the water. He notices the slight tremble of a leaf as it detaches from its branch and floats slowly downward. He notices the way the wind stirs the reeds in the same rhythm as the ripples on the water. In all these small motions, he finds a kind of magic that is easy to overlook, but no less profound for its subtlety. The shadows lengthen, softening the edges of the world. Finn sits still, almost holding his breath, as if he doesn't want to disturb the delicate balance of this quiet afternoon. Time stretches and bends, and in the slow unfolding of hours he feels something rare, a sense of completeness without achievement, a feeling of belonging to the moment without needing to shape it. This is a kind of adventure, too, one without monsters or treasures, yet full of discovery in the simplest of forms. As the afternoon drifts onward, the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky with soft hues of gold and lavender. Finn's eyes follow the changing colors, watching them ripple across the surface of the lake. Each reflection seems to move with a mind of its own, twisting and folding in quiet harmony with the breeze. There is something almost hypnotic in this gentle dance of light and water, something that feels like it exists just for him. A private world hidden within the ordinary. He adjusts his grip on the fishing rod and lets his thoughts wander once more. Finn thinks about his friends, those companions who often fill his days with adventure and laughter. He wonders where Jake might be right now, perhaps wandering aimlessly in some forgotten forest or snoozing in a sunlit corner of the tree fort. Maybe BMO is exploring a quiet nook of the house, imagining fantastic quests in miniature. Or perhaps Princess Bubblegum is deep in her lab, surrounded by glowing concoctions and whirring machinery. In this moment, he feels both connected and detached, the kind of contented solitude that only comes when the world moves slowly enough to notice. A soft breeze brushes across Finn's face, carrying the faint scent of pine and wildflowers. He breathes deeply, savoring the calm and letting it fill his chest like warm water. It is rare to find moments like this, moments that are untouched by chaos or urgency, and he knows it. Adventure is a calling, it always has been, but so too is quiet, and Finn is learning to recognize its subtle power. There is courage in stillness, in patience, in the willingness to sit by a lake and simply exist, listening to the world unfold without interference. Occasionally, a fish breaks the surface with a tiny splash, sending ripples that extend outward in concentric circles. Finn watches each ripple carefully, letting his eyes trace its movement until it dissolves into the vastness of the lake. He finds a strange comfort in the repetition, the predictability of such small occurrences, each one a reminder that life is always moving, even in silence. And in this gentle rhythm, Finn discovers a quiet sense of mastery, not over the world, not over monsters or quests, but over his own attention, his own mind, his own sense of being. He shifts slightly, leaning back on his hands, the warmth of the sun fading into the coolness of evening. The water mirrors the sky now, blending pinks, purples, and soft blues into a seamless reflection that seems almost impossible to distinguish from reality. Finn wonders how long he could stay here if he wanted to, if the world could shrink to just him and the lake, the wind, the subtle chorus of nature around him. Perhaps he could spend days like this, each one a quiet meditation, a slow unraveling of thoughts and dreams. The soft rustle of reeds calls his attention to the shore. A small heron steps lightly along the water's edge, careful not to disturb the fragile calm. Its movements are deliberate and elegant, almost ceremonial, and Finn watches in silent admiration. There is a rhythm here that he has never considered before, a pattern of life that unfolds with careful patience. The heron pauses, dips its beak into the water, and flicks it up again, tiny droplets scattering like diamonds in the fading light. Finn imagines the heron thinking in its own quiet way, sensing the world without needing to act upon it. The lake begins to cool as the sun sinks lower, and the first hints of evening touch the air. Finn's fingers graze the surface, watching the water catch the last glimmers of sunlight. The world feels suspended, like a soft sigh before night fully arrives. He listens closely to the sounds around him, the distant call of an owl, the faint rustle of leaves, the gentle lapping of water against stone. Each sound is a reminder that the world is alive, even in stillness, and that quiet moments are never truly empty. They are full of life, if only one listens carefully enough. Finn allows his imagination to wander further, picturing what the lake might look like at night. Perhaps it would glow faintly under moonlight, a silver mirror reflecting stars instead of clouds. Perhaps tiny creatures of the forest would emerge, curious and cautious, exploring the edges of the water as if it were a secret world meant only for those who take the time to watch. He thinks about the stories he has heard, the whispers of magic hidden in everyday places, and wonders if this lake holds such secrets too. Even if it doesn't, the act of imagining feels like magic enough. As shadows lengthen and the warmth of day begins to fade, Finn rests his head on his knees and lets the soft rhythm of the lake lull his thoughts. He feels a gentle tiredness, not from exertion, but from the slow, patient noticing of the world around him. There is a satisfaction in simply being present, in observing without acting, in feeling the gentle pulse of life unfold in its own time. The ripples on the water, the wind through the reeds, the distant chirp of a cricket, they all blend into a quiet symphony, a lullaby that does not need words. Finn closes his eyes briefly, letting the gentle sounds of the lake wash over him. His mind drifts without urgency, touching on memories of adventures past, small victories, and fleeting moments of friendship. Each thought floats lightly, carried along like a leaf on the surface of the water. There is a sense of completeness in this quiet reflection, a feeling that he is exactly where he needs to be, even if only for this fleeting stretch of time. The world beyond the lake, the battles, the quests, the constant pull of heroism, feels distant, softened by the embrace of the present moment. The sun dips lower now, softening the world into deeper shades of purple and indigo. Finn shifts, settling cross-legged on the warm stones of the shore. He watches as the colors of the sky deepen and stretch across the lake, mirrored in the water so perfectly it feels like the world has doubled itself, becoming a quiet place where reflection and reality merge. Each ripple across the lake stretches the reflection, folding it into gentle waves, reminding him that, even in stillness, the world is never truly motionless. Occasionally, a small frog hops from one lily pad to another, its movement deliberate and measured. Finn smiles softly, noticing the delicate balance in its tiny actions. These creatures, unnoticed by many, carry a grace and quiet persistence that feels somehow heroic in its own right. He leans closer, watching as the frog pauses, its bulging eyes reflecting the last light of day. He wonders what it might think if such thoughts reach a creature so small. Perhaps it, too, finds comfort in the slow rhythm of the lake, a sanctuary where the weight of the world does not press upon it. The first stars begin to peek through the twilight sky, tiny diamonds scattered across a deepening canvas. Finn lifts his gaze from the water to the heavens above, tracing patterns with his eyes, imagining constellations shaped like swords, shields, and the small, whimsical creatures he has met in his travels. He has always been fascinated by the stars, by the stories hidden in their glimmering light. But tonight they feel softer, closer, almost within reach. It is a quiet kind of magic, one that doesn't roar or blaze, but whispers, gently nudging the imagination to serene wonder. A gentle breeze rustles the reeds at the edge of the lake. The sound is soft, like a sigh of the world itself, and Finn closes his eyes for a moment to let it wash over him. Inhaling deeply, he savors the coolness of evening mingled with the faint warmth that the day has left in the air. There is a rhythm to this time between day and night, a liminal space where things feel possible, yet gentle, full of potential and mystery, but never threatening. Finn has learned that these moments are rare, fleeting, yet profoundly grounding, reminding him that peace that is just as much a part of life as action and adventure. He shifts slightly, leaning back on his hands again, watching the water shimmer in the dim light. Tiny insects skim the surface, leaving soft trails that sparkle momentarily before fading. It's a subtle choreography, almost too delicate to notice if one does not pay attention. Finn finds himself mesmerized by it, realizing that the quietest adventures are often invisible to the world, happening in the spaces where life moves without fanfare. In these small, unnoticed actions, there is beauty, a calm certainty that, even without grand quests or battles, the world continues, vibrant and alive. Finn's mind drifts further, wandering across memories, both recent and distant. He recalls days spent racing through the forest with Jake, the exhilaration of climbing mountains, the thrill of discovering hidden realms. And yet, here by the lake, those memories feel soft, distant, like a story he once lived rather than a weight pressing on the present. He contemplates the paradox of adventure, how it shapes a person, yet how equally important it is to step away, to allow space for thought, reflection, and quiet observation. These moments, he realizes, nurture the same courage that drives him into danger. They teach patience, empathy, and the subtle art of noticing. And the air cools further as evening deepens. Finn pulls his knees closer, wrapping his arms gently round them, and listens to the lake's quiet symphony. The lapping of water, the rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, all blend together into a soft lullaby. He begins to notice the small things he might otherwise overlook. A dragonfly's wings catching the last glints of sunlight, the way the reeds sway in delicate synchrony, the faint glow of fireflies beginning to dot the shore with their ephemeral light. There is a stillness here that feels alive, as though the world itself has chosen to pause and breathe alongside him. As the stars multiply and the sky deepening into a rich velvety blue, Finn feels a subtle shift within himself. There is a softness in his chest, a calmness that comes from being fully present, fully aware of the moment. He thinks of the adventures yet to come, the quests that await, and yet he is not anxious. Instead, he understands that this quiet interlude, these unwritten moments of rest and reflection, are themselves a kind of adventure, a journey not outward into danger, but inward into understanding, patience, and the gentle rhythm of existence. Finn glances around once more, taking in the lake, the reeds, the distant outline of trees softened by twilight. He imagines returning here someday, alone or with friends, and carrying with him the memory of this perfect stillness. He envisions telling Jake about the subtle beauty of the frog's movements, or describing the dance of fireflies to BMO. Even Princess Bubblegum in her late-night experiments might pause to listen if he shared the tranquility of this hidden corner. And yet, he knows some experiences are meant to be quietly kept, treasured as secret moments between the world and oneself. The first whispers of night deepen. Finn leans forward, fingertips brushing the water once more, sending small ripples across the mirrored surface. Each ripple fades into calm, reminding him that every action leaves its mark, however subtle, and then the world returns to balance. There is a peacefulness here that he cannot find anywhere else, a harmony between self and nature that requires no recognition, no reward, only the willingness to notice. He breathes in again, slow and deep, letting the rhythm of the lake sync with the rhythm of his heart. A gentle hush settles over the shore. The soft glimmer of fireflies rises and falls like tiny lanterns, illuminating the reeds and the water's edge in fleeting golden bursts. Finn sits quietly, a silent observer in this world of muted magic. He feels a gentle tiredness, not the exhaustion of battle, but the satisfying weariness that comes from presence, from attentiveness, from allowing the mind and body to move in tune with the world's slow pulse. He knows he could linger here for hours, letting the quiet guide him, letting the day dissolve into night in its own deliberate time. As the night deepens, the first full moon rises, casting a soft silver glow across the lake. The water shimmers like liquid light, reflecting stars and moon in patterns that seem to pulse with a quiet, timeless rhythm. Finn leans back, resting on his elbows, and watches as the lake transforms under the moon's gentle gaze. It is almost as if the lake itself breathes with him, a living mirror of calm, reflecting not only the sky but the subtle movements of his own thoughts. He notices the way shadows shift under the trees, the way the reeds bow in the nighttime breeze, whispering secrets in a language only the quietest listener could understand. Finn imagines the stories these plants might tell if they could speak, tales of seasons past, of creatures long gone, and of moments like this when the world pauses for a boy to simply exist. In these quiet imaginings, he feels the weight of both time and possibility, a gentle reminder that even ordinary days can hold small, unspoken adventures. A gentle splash draws his attention to the lake's surface. A fish leaps, arcs gracefully, and disappears beneath the water, leaving concentric circles that ripple outward. Finn watches each circle fade, pondering the subtle impact of every action, even the smallest. He thinks about his own adventures, the choices he has made, the people he has helped, and the fleeting consequences that often go unnoticed. Here, in the calm of the lake, he sees that even in stillness, life moves and transforms quietly, leaving beauty in places where no one might look. The air grows cooler now, wrapping around Finn like a soft blanket. He pulls his knees closer, letting his arms rest over them, and takes a slow, measured breath. In the silence, he hears the delicate harmony of life around him, the soft hum of insects, the distant croak of a frog, the whisper of wind through the leaves. Each sound is like a note in a quiet symphony, gentle and unhurried, carrying him further into the serene rhythm of the evening. Finn realizes that this kind of adventure requires no sword, no battle, no victory. It requires only attention, patience, and presence. Fireflies begin to emerge, their tiny lights flickering across the shore and the reeds, casting ephemeral golden patterns that dance across the water. Finn watches them, mesmerized by their delicate movements, feeling a small warmth in his chest, as if he understands a secret about the world that only comes in these quiet, hidden moments. He imagines that each firefly carries a tiny story, a spark of life that briefly illuminates the darkness, and that he, sitting at the edge of the lake, is privileged to witness. Finn leans forward again, resting his chin on his knees, and allows his mind to wander to memories and dreams. He recalls the laughter of Jake, the comforting hum of BMO, the warmth of Princess Bubblegum's presence in moments of both quiet, and chaos. Each memory floats gently, like a leaf carried across the water, touching him softly, and fading without leaving disturbance. He feels a profound sense of gratitude for these unseen moments, the in-between adventures that do not make stories or songs, yet shape the very essence of who he is. The sky deepens to a velvet indigo, and the stars shine more clearly now, reflected in the lake like scattered fragments of silver. Finn's eyelids grow heavy as he sits, still alert but increasingly lulled by the gentle cadence of night. He notices how the water absorbs the moonlight, how shadows become softer, how even the smallest ripple carries a quiet magic. In the calm, he imagines entire worlds existing just beneath the surface, secret and silent, waiting for someone like him to notice. Slowly, Finn lies back fully on the stones, letting the cool night air embrace him. His fishing rod rests beside him, forgotten, the lake's surface mirroring the deep, unspoken tranquility of his mind. The reeds sway gently above him, the wind hums a lullaby, and somewhere in the distance, the faint chirp of a cricket punctuates the silence. He allows himself to melt into the moment, becoming part of the gentle rhythm of the lake, the night, the slow, endless pulse of ooh itself. Finn's thoughts begin to drift like soft clouds across a night sky. He imagines the adventures he might have tomorrow, not the grand, heroic ones, but small, quiet ones, exploring a hidden grove, helping a lost creature, noticing the magic in ordinary things. Even in dreams, he feels this sense of calm, this quiet joy that comes from simply paying attention to the world. And he realizes that these unwritten adventures, these moments that no one else sees, are perhaps the most important of all, shaping his heart, his mind, and the gentle courage that lies at the center of every heroic tale. The moon rises high, bathing the lake and Finn in silver light. Shadows grow soft and long, and the world seems to exhale a sigh of contentment. Finn closes his eyes fully now, letting the sounds, the light, and the subtle pulse of life around him carry him toward rest. There is no rush, no expectation, only the quiet presence of a boy, a lake, and the soft unfolding of night. Here, in this secret, unwritten moment, Finn sleeps lightly, cradled by the gentle rhythm of the lake, the whispers of the reeds, and the faint glow of stars above. And as he drifts deeper into dreams, the quiet understanding settles within him. Not all adventures are written, not all tales are sung. Some exist only in the spaces between, in the soft folds of time, waiting to be noticed by those who are patient enough, gentle enough, and awake enough to see them. Now let us quietly turn our attention to Jake, Finn's loyal companion, stretching and bending not across fields or forests, but through the hushed remnants of forgotten kingdoms. Imagine him walking alone, long and limber, tail trailing lightly across cracked cobblestones, through towers that have surrendered themselves to time. The air here carries a different weight than the warm, familiar breeze of the tree fort, or the playful winds around the lake. It is cooler, faintly musty, tinged with the scent of moss, and the lingering memory of something once grand, now soft and crumbling. The ruins rise like ancient whispers around him. Stone walls, etched with symbols that have faded nearly to invisibility, seem to hum faintly. A memory of the people who once walked these halls. Windows stare blankly, some broken, some still intact, like eyes frozen in thought. The wind moves through the gaps in the architecture, producing soft tones, like echoes of songs long forgotten, and Jake listens with quiet curiosity. He is not searching for treasure or danger. He is not hunting or fleeing. He is simply wandering, letting the ruins speak to him in their gentle, patient language. He pauses near a fallen archway, crouching to sniff at the ground. Tiny mushrooms cling to the stone in delicate patterns, and small insects weave intricate paths between them. Jake's stretchy, attentive form allows him to bend and peer into every nook and cranny, observing the world's quiet intricacies. Even in decay there is life, soft and subtle, humming a quiet rhythm that he alone seems to hear fully. He imagines the kingdom as it once was, bustling with citizens, echoing with footsteps, laughter, and the delicate clatter of daily life. And he wonders what it feels like to be the only one walking these quiet corridors, to move through time as though it has slowed just for him. The light of the late afternoon slants softly through broken rooftops, creating pools of gold across the cracked stone floors. Dust motes float lazily in the beams, catching the fading sun in tiny sparkles, almost magical in their simplicity. Jake stretches his body, elongating across a sunbeam, and watches the shimmer. He imagines himself as a silent sentinel of the ruins, a creature moving with grace and ease through spaces where the world has forgotten to pay attention. In a way, he feels protective of these quiet remnants, as if his presence preserves them, keeps their stories alive even as time continues its slow, indifferent march. A distant ripple of sound draws his ears, and Jake tilts his head. Perhaps a small creature scurries unseen, or a tiny stone falls from a crumbling wall. He moves closer, stretching himself to peer under a collapsed doorway, and finds a family of squirrels making a home in the shadows. Their tiny movements are careful and deliberate, and Jake smiles softly. The rhythms of life persist even here, among silence and decay. He notes the gentle ingenuity of these little creatures, marveling at their ability to claim space, to survive, to flourish quietly in a world that seems abandoned. He wanders further, stepping lightly across fallen bricks and softened soil. The ruins open into a courtyard where an old fountain rests, empty and cracked. The stone animals that once spouted water are chipped but still recognizable: a lion, a swan, and a fox, frozen mid-motion in the eternal stillness of time. Jake curls near the edge, tail draping across the worn stone, and imagines the sound of water echoing through the courtyard, trickling over the figures, carrying whispers of long-forgotten conversations. The idea of sound in a space now so silent is comforting, almost meditative, as if he can fill the emptiness with imagined music and life. The sky above begins to soften into evening, clouds brushing pastel pinks and purples across the horizon. Jake stretches his body skyward, feeling the length of him sway with the wind. He lets his mind wander as freely as his limbs, considering the centuries these ruins have witnessed. He pictures the lives of those who built these halls, children chasing one another through corridors, artisans quietly etching symbols into stone, guards pausing to watch the horizon. And yet there is no sadness in the absence, only reverent calm, as if the ruins themselves are not grieving but sleeping, holding their memories in a quiet embrace for anyone patient enough to walk among them. Small creatures continue to reveal themselves as Jake moves slowly through the space. A family of fireflies rises in the growing dusk, their tiny lights illuminating forgotten corners of the courtyard. Their glow reflects in the cracks and puddles left from a long-ago rain, creating a delicate pattern that dances across the stone. Jake watches, mesmerized by the simplicity and quiet wonder of it, feeling as though the ruins are sharing their secret rhythm with him alone. He imagines what it must be like to have no one watching, no expectation, only the freedom to wander and notice the gentle miracles of a place otherwise overlooked. Jake pauses beneath a collapsed arch, letting his body stretch tall as the wind brushes against him. Shadows move with the fading light, softening the edges of broken walls and fallen towers. He closes his eyes briefly, listening to the echoes of his own breath. the distant rustle of leaves, the faint hum of insects beginning their nocturnal chorus. In this stillness, he senses the weight of time differently, not as something to fear or conquer, but as a gentle tide, a slow, inevitable current that carries life forward and folds moments into memory. As the evening grows darker, the ruins take on a new personality, softened by shadows and the pale silver glow of the rising moon. Jake moves carefully, his elongated form gliding over fallen stones and crumbled arches, tracing paths that no one has walked for years, perhaps decades. Each step is deliberate yet unhurried, as if the ruins themselves are guiding him gently, inviting him to explore the silent stories hidden in every nook. He inhales deeply, cool night air carrying faint scents of moss, damp stone, and wildflowers that have claimed their small corners among the decay. The courtyard widens into what was once a garden, though time has reshaped it into a delicate wilderness. Ivy climbs stubbornly along fractured walls, soft leaves brushing against Jake as he passes. Small flowers bloom here and there, their petals illuminated faintly by moonlight, their colors muted but alive. Jake bends to sniff the blossoms, letting their subtle fragrance fill him with a calm sense of continuity, a reminder that life persists even in spaces abandoned by people. The quiet of the garden is profound, interrupted only by soft rustlings, the distant scurry of tiny creatures, and the occasional whisper of the wind through broken towers. He wanders toward a cracked fountain, half buried in creeping vines, imagining the water that once danced from its spouts, sparkling in the sunlight, echoing with the laughter of those who once lived here. Jake stretches his body over the stone edge, tail brushing lightly against the moss, and considers the centuries that have passed since this place was alive. He wonders what stories the fountain might hold if stones could speak, what laughter, sorrow, and quiet moments it might remember. There is a kind of reverence in thinking of these small, unnoticed histories, an awareness that the world has layers far deeper than the moment at hand. A soft flutter draws his gaze upward. A pair of owls perch on a crumbling tower, their large eyes observing the courtyard with calm curiosity. Jake watches them for a long moment, marveling at the stillness of their movements. They are creatures of the night, fully at home in this quiet, shadowed place. In a way, Jake feels kinship with them. They, too, move through a world shaped by time and memory, finding comfort in the rhythms of what exists, rather than lamenting what has been lost. He continues his wanderings through narrow corridors of broken walls, stepping lightly over roots that have forced their way through stone. The faint glow of fireflies begins to fill the air, tiny points of light that twinkle like stars brought down from the sky. Their presence transforms the ruins, giving them a gentle magic, as though the night itself is offering a slow, deliberate performance for those willing to witness it. Jake's long ears twitch at the soft sounds of life, the crackle of leaves, the rustle of small animals, the quiet hum of unseen insects. Each sound threads into a melody, subtle and delicate, that seems designed to lull both him and the ruins into shared calm. A gentle breeze carries the faint scent of distant forests, mingling with the earthiness of the ruins themselves. Jake stretches lazily along a fallen wall, letting his body lengthen and twist, observing the patterns of moonlight through broken windows and gaps in the stone. Shadows stretch and bend, weaving shapes that shift with the wind, painting the walls in silent stories. He imagines the original inhabitants walking these halls, their lives interwoven with the spaces they built, and feels a quiet connection across time. He is a witness to both presence and absence, to memory and imagination coexisting in a single, gentle space. Further down a winding passage, Jake finds a small alcove where sunlight long past had once spilled through a now collapsed roof. Moss and lichen have claimed it, softening the stone edges into curves that invite him to rest. He curls there for a moment, tail draping over his stretched form, feeling the coolness of stone beneath him, the warmth of the night brushing against his fur. It is a pause that feels sacred, a space where he can let the world dissolve around him, leaving only the gentle hum of life, both past and present, and the comforting rhythm of his own breathing. In the quiet, Jake begins to imagine the stories that might have unfolded here. Perhaps a young prince or princess once played in this very alcove, chasing small animals and laughing in the sunlight. Perhaps artisans worked diligently, carving tiny details into the stone, leaving behind marks that only the patient observer could notice centuries later. Jake smiles to himself, recognizing that he is the observer now, a traveler moving through the memory of others, filling the spaces with gentle attention and imagination. He rises slowly, moving deeper into the ruins as the night settles fully around him. The stars above begin to twinkle more brightly, their reflection faintly mirrored in small puddles that have collected in the cracks of stone. Jake pauses at one of these puddles, watching a perfect mirror of the night sky shimmer in the water. He imagines entire constellations resting there, worlds within worlds, and lets himself think of the infinite possibilities contained in quiet, unwitnessed moments. The ruins are no longer just remnants of what was. They are living, breathing spaces in their own right, revealing secrets only to those who wander gently and with attention. The night deepens, and the ruins settle into a hush so complete that even the faintest whisper of movement seems amplified. Jake moves slowly now, his body stretching and curling with ease, each motion deliberate, as if he is mindful of disturbing the delicate balance of the sleeping stones around him. The moon casts a soft silver glow over the crumbled towers, their jagged edges softened in the gentle light. Shadows stretch long and thin, curling into shapes that seem almost alive, and Jake imagines them as quiet companions, guiding him along paths that have not been walked for many years. He pauses on a narrow bridge spanning what might have once been a rushing stream, now only a small trickle of water reflecting the moonlight. Jake leans over, nose close to the surface, and watches as tiny fish dart beneath, illuminated by the faint glow above. Their movements are delicate, careful, yet full of purpose, a reminder that even in places abandoned by humans, life persists in quiet beauty. Jake smiles softly, feeling a gentle connection to this hidden world. Here in the ruins, he is both observer and participant, a witness to life that thrives without notice, thriving in ways subtle and extraordinary. Further along, he discovers a collapsed library, its shelves fallen and scattered, books weathered and softened by time. Jake stretches to peek inside, curling around a fallen beam to observe the titles faintly etched into their worn covers. He imagines the voices that once spoke these words aloud, the thoughts and dreams of people long gone. The library smells faintly of aged paper, stone, and moss, a comforting, earthy scent that seems to cradle the mind as gently as the night itself. Jake imagines curling up among these books, letting their stories seep into him like a soft lullaby, connecting past and present through quiet reflection. The wind carries through broken windows, whispering softly as it bends around corners and through gaps in the stone. Jake listens closely, letting the soft rush of air guide his thoughts. It feels like the ruins themselves are breathing, alive in a subtle, patient way. He contemplates the passage of time, how these walls have witnessed countless moments of joy, sorrow, and quiet routine, and he realizes that his wandering is not intrusion, but communion. By moving gently, observing closely, He becomes part of the memory of this place, preserving its rhythm simply through attention. As he moves into an inner courtyard, Jake notices small plants and flowers emerging from cracks in the stone. The moonlight glows softly over them, highlighting their persistence and delicate beauty. He crouches to examine a tiny bloom, its petals shimmering faintly in silver light. In these quiet, almost hidden moments, Jake feels the magic of life, the way it finds a way to flourish even when forgotten. He stretches his fingers toward the flower, almost reverently, feeling a calm satisfaction in witnessing its quiet triumph. There is a lesson here in stillness and observation, a kind of wisdom that only reveals itself to those who move slowly and listen. The night air grows cooler, brushing softly across Jake's fur. He curls himself into a comfortable shape, tail wrapping lightly around him as he rests on a flat stone near the courtyard. Above, the stars shine brighter, mirrored in shallow puddles that capture fragments of the sky. Jake lets his eyes drift upward, tracing constellations he has imagined before, picturing the stories they might tell. Each flicker of light seems to whisper of worlds both vast and intimate, a reminder that the quietest corners of Ooh contain as much wonder as the most dazzling adventures. A faint rustling draws his attention to the far edge of the courtyard. Tiny creatures move carefully among the fallen stones, a family of hedgehogs cautiously exploring, their small movements deliberate and careful. Jake smiles, stretching toward them without disturbing their rhythm. He feels an unspoken camaraderie with these hidden lives, a sense that each of them, in their quiet persistence, mirrors the slow, attentive journey he is on tonight. There is an understanding here, soft and wordless, that life, in all its forms, continues, and that even abandoned places are alive with stories waiting to be noticed. Jake continues to wander, moving with a gentle curiosity that never rushes, never demands. Each step carries him further into the evening, and he discovers subtle details in the ruins that might have gone unnoticed by anyone else. The intricate pattern of moss along a cracked column, the way vines curl around a fallen arch, the tiny diamonds of dew glistening on the tips of leaves. Each observation brings a quiet thrill, a sense of connection to the forgotten history around him. The ruins are no longer just empty stone. They are alive with texture, sound, memory, and the patient persistence of life. The night deepens into a velvet calm. Jake pauses atop a fallen tower, looking out over the ruined landscape, bathed in the soft silver of moonlight. The broken spires and crumbling walls stretch in quiet symmetry, and he imagines the lives that once filled this space. Children laughing, artisans shaping stone, guards walking vigilant paths, all now memories, soft as the night air. And yet, in their absence, there is a presence, a lingering resonance that Jake feels deeply, quietly, as he watches and stretches beneath the stars. He finally curls up in a quiet nook beneath a half-collapsed wall, tail draping over him, body relaxed and content. The moonlight filters softly through the broken ceiling, dappling his fur with gentle patterns. He listens to the night, the soft hum of insects, the rustle of leaves, the whisper of wind brushing through ancient stones. In this peaceful solitude, Jake feels both small and immense, part of the history around him, and yet alone in his awareness of it. There is a rare kind of adventure here, not in danger or triumph, but in noticing, in presence, in the patient unfolding of moments that exist only for those who slow down enough to witness them. Jake closes his eyes, letting the night cradle him. The ruins breathe softly around him, each stone and vine part of a quiet symphony. He drifts toward sleep with the gentle rhythm of the forgotten kingdom beneath him, the moonlight above, and the unspoken stories of centuries surrounding him. And in that stillness, he understands something profound. Even in the absence of heroes and quests, even in abandoned spaces, there is magic, quiet and patient, waiting to be discovered by those who wander with care. As the hours pass, the moon begins to tilt westward, its silver edge tracing the contours of broken towers and fractured bridges. Jake wakes briefly from his half-sleep, ears twitching at the faint rustle of the breeze. The ruins are alive in their own quiet way. The wind hums through old corridors, and leaves whisper against stone. He lifts his head, eyes half open, and stretches his long body across the cool earth. The night has grown darker, softer, yet full of a quiet warmth that makes the whole world seem closer, gentler. He decides to wander a little more before morning. There is no plan, no destination. Only curiosity guiding him through the dream-like calm of the ruins. His steps are slow, measured. When he brushes against vines, they sway lightly, releasing the faintest scent of green life. The path before him is narrow and uneven, but he moves with the patience of someone who has long learned that every turn, every crack in the stone, hides something worth noticing. He finds himself at the base of a tall, broken tower, its upper half long fallen into a tangle of debris. A spiral staircase still clings to the inner wall, its steps worn smooth by time. Jake's body stretches upward, coiling and curving along the stone as he ascends. The higher he climbs, the more the night opens around him. Stars spill across the horizon in uncountable numbers, their light glimmering softly off the ruins' edges. It feels like ascending through memory itself, each step another layer of forgotten time. When he reaches the top, he finds a quiet platform overlooking the remnants of the old city. The air here is cool and clean, touched by the faint scent of distant rain. Jake sits down, gazing over the sleeping landscape. The view is vast, peaceful, and hauntingly beautiful. Where walls have fallen, nature has begun to weave her own design. Trees growing through rooftops, moss painting green patterns over gray. It is as if the world has forgiven the past and gently, patiently, taken it back. Jake lets his mind drift. He imagines the people who once stood here, perhaps guards keeping watch or lovers stealing moments under the moonlight. He thinks about how they too must have felt the wind on their faces, heard the same soft rustle of the leaves, looked up at the same stars. Time separates them, but the sensations remain, the quiet hum of life that never truly fades. In that thought, he finds comfort. The ruins are not ghosts. They are memories that have learned to rest. A faint sound catches his attention, a gentle trickling, like water moving through stone. Jake follows it down, stretching and gliding through narrow gaps until he emerges into a small chamber at the tower's base. There, a thin stream flows between stones, forming a shallow pool. Moonlight filters through a crack in the ceiling, catching on the surface and scattering patterns of liquid light across the walls. Jake leans close, watching the reflections ripple. It feels like the heart of the ruins, a secret place where time still flows quietly, unseen. He dips a paw into the water, feeling its coolness spread through him. For a moment, it's as though the ruins themselves are alive, sharing their calm with him. He lies down beside the pool, chin resting on his stretched arm, and lets the gentle sound of running water fill his ears. The rhythm is soothing, like the slow breathing of the earth. He closes his eyes and listens to water, to wind, to the faint heartbeat of the world around him. The ruins do not speak in words, but Jake can feel their message all the same. That silence is not emptiness, that endings can be soft, that even in decay there is peace, beauty, and the promise of renewal. The night seems to nod in agreement, wrapping him in its stillness. When he opens his eyes again, dawn is brushing the edges of the horizon. The first hints of gold peek through cracks in the walls, touching the moss, lighting the stones in pale warmth. Birds begin to stir, their songs threading into the soft morning air. Jake watches as color slowly returns to the world. The ruins, now bathed in light, look different, gentler, alive. The same walls that seemed lonely at night now appear tranquil, content, as though they are waking too. He stretches once more, body arching long and loose, feeling the warmth of morning spread across his fur. There's no need for words, no need for explanation. This quiet wander, this sleepless night among fallen kingdoms, has been its own kind of adventure, a slower, deeper one. The kind where discovery comes not from battles or quests, but from being still long enough to feel the heartbeat of forgotten places. Jake takes one last look at the ruins before heading back toward the open fields. The air smells of dew and soil, and the sun creeps gently over the horizon, washing the world in gold. The distant call of a bird echoes through the hollow halls, answered by the soft creak of branches in the wind. It feels like a farewell, but not a sad one. More like the closing of a quiet chapter, a promise that even solitude carries its own kind of magic. As he walks away, the ruins fade slowly behind him, their shapes melting into the morning mist. But their presence lingers, tucked somewhere in his thoughts, like a song without words that he hums softly to himself. The wind moves through the grass, warm now, alive with the scent of day. Jake's tail sways gently, his steps easy, unhurried. And though the world around him begins to wake, he carries the peace of the ruins with him, as though some part of that ancient silence now breathes quietly within him. The ruins return to their stillness once more, bathed in golden light. The vines shimmer, the pool ripples softly, and somewhere in the distant forest, the sound of Jake's quiet humming fades into the morning. When the rest of the Candy Kingdom sleeps, its colors softened under the gentle weight of night, Princess Bubblegum remains awake. Her tower glows faintly, a warm, rose-pink beacon in the quiet dark. The streets below are empty, save for the soft hum of distant fireflies drifting through the sugar-scented air. Inside the tower, a different kind of magic stirs the quiet hum of glass vials, the slow bubbling of gentle experiments, and the steady rhythm of her thoughts moving like a river beneath moonlight. These are her favorite hours, the hours when the kingdom no longer needs her to lead or smile or decide. In these late-night stretches of solitude, she can simply create, think, and explore without interruption. Her hair glows faintly in the candlelight as she moves between her work tables, carefully adjusting the flame beneath a beaker, then jotting a small note in her elegant script. The tower is filled with the soft scent of fruit acids and honey glass, the air humming with the quiet energy of invention. Outside, the moon hangs large and low, its light spilling through the glass walls of the lab, turning everything the color of pale sugar. The instruments cast delicate shadows that sway as the candle flames flicker. PB moves with careful precision, her mind humming with ideas too fragile to share with anyone else. These are not grand experiments meant for the kingdom. They are private wonders, quiet questions whispered only to herself. She adjusts her lenses, focusing on a small jar where a faint pink glow pulses like a heartbeat. It is a cluster of microscopic candy cells, a living experiment that moves, grows, and responds to sound. She leans close, whispering softly, and the glow seems to pulse in rhythm with her voice. It is a gentle miracle, one born not from necessity, but from curiosity. PB smiles faintly, her eyes reflecting the shimmer of her creation. She notes the pattern, sketches a few more details, and then simply watches. In this moment, she is not a ruler or a scientist. She is a dreamer in her own quiet universe. The clock on the wall ticks softly, a reminder of the passing hours. But to PB, time feels fluid here. Night is her companion, not her limitation. Each moment stretches sweet and slow as she explores thoughts that the daylight never allows her to entertain. She wonders about the boundaries between life and creation, about where thought becomes existence, and whether her kingdom, her people, her own candy body are all part of some long experiment that never truly ends. On another table, a sphere of glass rests, suspended in midair, filled with slow-moving clouds of blue and violet. It glows faintly, humming with low musical tones that rise and fall like distant breathing. This is one of her more abstract projects, something she calls her dream engine. She designed it to study the patterns of sleeping consciousness, to understand what happens when the mind drifts away from thought into dream. She watches the colors swirl, fascinated by their soft unpredictability. They remind her of the stars she sometimes observes from the castle balcony, glowing with a life that feels both near and impossibly far away. A candy bat flutters near the window, its wings beating faintly as it perches on the sill. PB glances up from her notes, smiling softly at its curious eyes. "You're up late too, huh?" she murmurs, voice quiet, warm. The bat chirps once and settles in, folding its wings as though to listen. She likes to imagine the nocturnal creatures of the kingdom as her silent collaborators, tiny witnesses to the birth of new ideas. In the stillness of these hours, it feels as though the entire night is leaning in, listening, waiting to see what she will discover next. She walks over to a small shelf where old journals are stacked thick, hand-bound volumes filled with formulas, theories, and occasional doodles that mark the wandering paths of her mind. Some entries are decades old, their ink faded, their edges worn from countless rereads. She opens one at random, running her fingers over the familiar lines. A memory flickers her younger self, surrounded by beakers and books, working through the first nights of her reign, driven by equal parts fear and fascination. Even then, she sought understanding not out of vanity, but from an unshakable desire to know what keeps the world alive, what holds it all together when no one is looking. The sound of gentle bubbling draws her back to the present. She crosses the room, peering into a clear glass dome where soft pink vapors drift like silk. Inside, a cluster of candy crystals is slowly growing, expanding molecule by molecule. She leans close, resting her chin on her hands as she watches. Each crystal forms in perfect geometry, yet each one is slightly different, like snowflakes or fingerprints. PB finds comfort in that small imperfection, the reminder that even in creation, chaos leaves its beautiful trace. Outside her tower, the kingdom sleeps on, unaware of the quiet symphony unfolding above. From the distant horizon, the faintest hint of morning is still hours away. For now, this is her world, the still, thoughtful pulse of invention under starlight. She adjusts her gloves and picks up a slender silver rod, dipping it gently into the shimmering mixture. The glass dome fogs slightly as the reaction begins to change hue, from soft pink to deep coral, then finally to a pale blue that glows faintly in the dark. PB's eyes glint with fascination as she observes the slow transition. Every color, every vibration carries a meaning she's learned to read like a language. Blue means stabilization. Coral means evolution. The glow is the breath of something waking up. She jots a note on her parchment. Subject demonstrates awareness through luminescent response. Possible link to emotional frequency? Then she pauses, staring at the words, emotional frequency. The thought lingers longer than most. She sets her quill down and leans back, folding her arms. For all her science, for all her logic and structure, there's always been that lingering curiosity, the invisible force that seems to animate the world in ways no formula can explain. The air is warm inside the tower, the smell of molten sugar thick and sweet. Outside, a gentle wind passes over the candy rooftops, and a chime rings faintly somewhere in the dark. PB glances toward the window, her eyes distant for a moment. Somewhere out there, Finn and Jake are probably asleep, snoring softly, their dreams rippling through the quiet fields. A small smile touches her lips. They're often the reason she pushes herself harder, not because she needs to protect them, but because she wants to understand what they represent. They are chaos, spontaneity, emotion. They are everything that her equations can't quite measure. She turns back to her table and lifts the dome. The candy crystals hum softly, vibrating like plucked strings. A small piece breaks off and begins to float, suspended by an invisible field. PB tilts her head, whispering, "Hello, little one." The crystal spins once, catching the light like a tiny prism. She knows it's not alive in any traditional sense, but there's something about its reaction that feels aware, curious even. She watches it drift higher before gently catching it in a small jar. The glow fades slowly, resting. There's a childlike joy in her eyes, one that few ever get to see. So often, she's the composed ruler, the analytical scientist. But here, in the soft amber of candlelight, she is simply Bonnabelle, the curious girl who once built her first candy cell out of nothing but sugar dust and determination. The one who stayed up nights wondering if dreams themselves could be measured in grams. On the far wall, an old machine whirs softly to life. It's one of her earliest inventions, a mind recorder, designed to translate neural waves into sound. The glass cylinder at its center begins to glow with shifting colors as it captures the gentle hum of her thoughts. She closes her eyes, letting the machine interpret the quiet rhythm of her mind. The tones it produces are delicate, like music boxes made of breath and memory. PB listens, entranced. Each note seems to echo an emotion she didn't realize she still carried: pride, loneliness, wonder. The sound of solitude becomes something beautiful, something she can almost hold. She lowers herself into a chair, resting her chin on her palm, and lets the melody fill the lab. On a nearby shelf, a photograph leans against a jar of glittering dust. It's old and slightly faded, showing a younger PB with Marceline, both of them laughing, faces streaked with sugar paint. PB's eyes soften as she glances at it. There are experiments she's done that she can replicate 1,000 times, yet the chemistry of connection, friendship, affection, forgiveness remains the most unpredictable of all. She sometimes wonders if her experiments at night are really about science at all, or if they're her way of staying close to the people and moments that shaped her. A timer dings softly, snapping her back to focus. She crosses the room to a set of test tubes that have cooled to a silvery hue. When she lifts one, it emits a faint whispering sound, not mechanical, but organic, like the sigh of a breeze. She brings it close to her ear, curious. The sound is rhythmic, gentle, repeating. She realizes it's her own recorded voice, somehow captured and played back through the chemical reaction itself. Her heart gives a small, delighted skip. "You remembered," she says softly, half to herself, half to the experiment. She takes a small step back, smiling in quiet awe. For all her precision, it's these moments of accidental magic that move her the most when her work surprises her, when it feels like something unseen has reached out and answered. She writes quickly, her quill scratching across the page. Self-replicating audio imprint. Chemical resonance memory achieved. Then she stops again, tapping the pen against her chin. "Memory?" she whispers. The concept feels heavy tonight. Maybe because she's been thinking of the old days more often, or maybe because every experiment feels like an attempt to preserve something fleeting, a thought, a dream, a feeling, before it dissolves into time. She moves to the window, pushing it open just enough to let the night air drift in. The stars shimmer faintly above the gumdrop hills, their light reflecting on the candy rooftops like frost. PB leans on the windowsill, her gaze distant and thoughtful. So much of the world below is built from her hands, her formulas, her will, and yet even now it moves beyond her control, alive, unpredictable, dreaming. She finds peace in that realization. The hum of her machines continues softly behind her, steady and rhythmic, like a lullaby built from invention itself. She breathes it in, lets her shoulders relax, and feels for a rare moment, completely at ease. The night doesn't feel so lonely when it's full of quiet wonder. PB walks back toward the center of her lab, her footsteps soft against the polished floor. The glow of her latest experiment still lingers in the air, faint, blue, and alive. She sets the jar down beside another contraption she's been assembling quietly for weeks. A glass heart, woven from sugar filaments, connected to a network of tiny tubes that pulse faintly with pastel light. It looks almost like a living organ, but translucent, as if it's made from the breath of a dream. Tonight she intends to finish it. Not for any grand reason, not to build a weapon or a guardian, but simply because she wants to see if something made entirely from sweetness and intention can hold a rhythm of its own. The idea has haunted her for months, forming in the quiet moments between her duties as ruler and her experiments as a scientist. The question that won't leave her mind is simple. Can something be alive just because it wants to be? She picks up a small tuning fork and taps it gently against the edge of the table. The sound hums through the air, pure and steady. The light within the glass heart flickers in response, faint at first, then stronger, sinking with the vibration. PB smiles, her expression soft with satisfaction. "That's it," she murmurs. "You can feel it, can't you?" She begins connecting the final wires threads of caramel-thin metal, running to small glass vials that pulse with a chemical color. Each vial represents something intangible: energy, emotion, memory. When she finally closes the circuit, the entire structure gives a faint sigh, as though it's exhaling for the first time. The room fills with an otherworldly glow, not bright, not harsh, just warm, like the reflection of candlelight on water. PB steps back and watches as the heart begins to beat, slow, gentle, a rhythm that feels almost human. She can see the pulse travel through the tubes, lighting up the workbench like veins of crystal sugar. She doesn't speak. For once, she doesn't even take notes. She just watches quietly as her creation hums softly to itself. Something about the moment feels sacred. The castle is silent, the kingdom asleep, and yet here in this tower something new has begun. The heart beats without instruction, without algorithm. Its rhythm isn't coded, it's spontaneous, delicate, alive. She can feel it through the floorboards, through the air, as though the entire lab has begun to breathe along with it. PB approaches slowly, her hands clasped in front of her chest. "Do you know what you are?" she whispers, smiling faintly. The heart responds with a soft pulse, the glow deepening just slightly. It's impossible, she knows that. And yet, the part of her that once believed in fairy tales, the part she's buried under layers of science, flickers back to life. Maybe, she thinks, this is how life begins, not with design or decree, but with quiet will. She sets her hand gently against the glass. It's warm. A vibration runs up her fingers, steady and comforting, like the heartbeat of a sleeping creature. The sound mingles with the ticking of her instruments and the distant hum of the night beyond her walls. She feels an emotion she doesn't often allow herself to feel: peace. Then a faint shimmer appears at the edge of the heart's casing. The glow extends outward, forming faint, rippling patterns in the air, geometric shapes, symbols, equations that seem to write themselves. PB's eyes widen slightly. The air vibrates with soft tones, like whispers woven into music. She recognizes the patterns. They're her own notes, her own formulae being replayed, echoed, interpreted. It's learning, or perhaps remembering. She moves quickly, adjusting a few dials, making sure the readings are stable. But she doesn't interrupt the process. She just listens as the sounds grow clearer, almost melodic now. The lab feels less like a workspace and more like a cathedral of thought and energy, filled with something far beyond calculation. And in that soft music, she hears something that makes her chest tighten, a few gentle notes that sound eerily familiar. A tune she hasn't heard in years. She frowns slightly, then smiles as recognition dawns. It's a melody Marceline once hummed while they worked together on the candy greenhouse long ago when things were simpler. The heart is echoing it. Somehow, through layers of memory and resonance, it has found a fragment of her past. PB lets out a small laugh, quiet, tender, full of awe. "You clever thing," she whispers. "You're made of memory, after all." She sits back down at her desk, letting the sound wash over her. The melody shifts, flowing like a lullaby, filling the room with warmth. The glow reflects off her notes, turning them golden. For a moment, the boundaries between science and emotion dissolve completely. There is only creation, humming gently into the dark. She writes a single line in her journal. Perhaps consciousness is not built, but remembered. Then she closes the book, as though sealing the thought away for later. The night deepens outside. The sky has turned a shade of indigo so soft it feels like velvet. The towers of the Candy Kingdom shimmer faintly beneath the stars, their pastel colors muted under the moonlight. PB stands, stretches her arms, and gazes once more at her creation. The heart still beats slowly, rhythmically, casting soft pulses of light across the lab. Something inside her stirs, not quite pride, not quite melancholy, just the quiet satisfaction of having brought something into being, even if it exists only for this night. She knows that by morning she may dismantle it, study it, refine it. But for now, she lets it be. Tonight it lives. She turns off the brighter lamps, leaving only a single candle flickering beside the heart. The rest of the room falls into gentle shadow. PB sits beside the table, resting her chin on her hands, and lets her eyes soften. Her heartbeat and the glass heart's rhythm align slowly, two steady pulses echoing each other through the stillness. It's not the kind of discovery that will change the world, but it's one that will stay with her, a reminder that even within formulas and calculations, there's room for wonder. That sometimes, in the middle of the night, when everyone else is dreaming, science and Jake can share the same breath. The candle flickers once, then steadies, and PB closes her eyes, listening to the music of the night. Her creation, breathing softly, the wind whispering through the towers, the universe humming somewhere far beyond. The air feels heavier now, not with tension, but with the deep quiet that comes after creation. Princess Bubblegum sits motionless at her table, the candle's flame drawing slow circles of gold across her face. The heart of light continues to pulse nearby, steady and sure. Each rhythm fills the room with a faint hum, like the breathing of a world still deciding whether or not it should awaken. PB exhales, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She's aware of how late it is. The faint pink edge of dawn will soon begin to soften the horizon, yet she feels no urge to sleep. There's a serenity to this hour that she rarely allows herself to feel. The castle is silent. Her kingdom slumbers in safety. And in this moment, she isn't the ruler of the Candy Kingdom, or the guardian of science. She's just Bonnabelle, sitting beside something she made, letting herself be small in the presence of wonder. Her gaze lingers on the faint symbols still shimmering in the air. They dance slowly, rearranging themselves like thoughts forming mid-dream. She wonders if the heart understands her, if in its strange luminescent logic, it knows who made it, or what it was meant to be. It feels odd to think that maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe creation doesn't need to understand its creator to be beautiful. She stands, stretching lightly, then crosses the lab to a small table where a kettle rests on a heating coil. She pours herself a cup of tea peppermint and crystallized honey, a blend she made for nights exactly like this. The scent fills the room, mingling with the soft hum of the machines. As she takes a sip, she looks out through the wide window over her city. The gumdrop rooftops shimmer faintly under the moonlight, and beyond them, the fields glisten like rivers of sugar. It's a strange world she's built, half sweetness, half science, all held together by willpower and care. She often wonders what her kingdom dreams about. The people below, her citizens made from candy and imagination. Do they dream of her? Or do they dream of their own worlds built from frosting skies and syrup seas? The thought makes her smile softly. Maybe the act of ruling isn't about control, but about faith that those you create will find their own way to live, to imagine, to grow beyond you. Phoebe turns back to the heart. Its glow has softened now, fading to a gentle blush as though it's growing tired. She approaches it quietly and places her hand once more on the glass. You've done well. You can rest now. The light dims, pulsing one last time before settling into a steady, faint shimmer, like an ember under glass. The lab grows quieter. Only the faint ticking of the mind recorder remains, along with the faint rustle of her notes under the breeze from the open window. She takes another sip of tea, her eyes half-lidded, thoughtful. She's reminded of something Simon once told her long ago, that all inventions are just mirrors for the soul, reflections of what we hope to understand about ourselves. She hadn't fully believed it then. But tonight, as she stands before a sleeping creation that glows faintly like a heartbeat, she feels the truth of it. Invention, she realizes, isn't about control. It's about reaching out into the unknown, into possibility, and hoping that something reaches back. The heart was never about perfection or power. It was about connection, about seeing if even in the silence of science there could exist a pulse that answered her own. She glances again at the old photograph of herself and Marceline. Their laughter is frozen there, immortal in sugar-smudged smiles, a memory that never fades no matter how many centuries pass. PB brushes a bit of dust from the frame and whispers, "You'd laugh if you saw this, Marcy. You'd call it sappy." Her voice carries a soft warmth that lingers in the air, gentle and fond. The first faint streaks of dawn begin to touch the edges of the horizon. The light shifts through her window, washing the lab in soft hues of pink and lavender. PB moves to her chair and sits down, her cup of tea now half empty, her eyelids heavy. The day ahead will bring its usual noise meetings, experiments, responsibilities, but for now, in this gentle in-between, she lets herself be still. The machines slow their hums one by one as she powers them down. The glass heart remains faintly lit, casting a tender glow over her notes. It seems almost alive even in rest, like a reminder that what she's built tonight will continue in some way inside her thoughts. PB closes her eyes and listens to the silence. The room feels full, not of sound, but of meaning. A gentle thought crosses her mind that maybe every invention, every life, every dream she's ever shaped has been a way of speaking to the world in its own language. And maybe the world, in quiet moments like this, speaks back through the glow of dawn, through the hum of a finished experiment, through the peace that follows understanding. Her breathing slows, her shoulders ease. The soft golden light of morning grows warmer, wrapping around her like a blanket. PB takes one last look at the sleeping heart, her lips forming a faint smile. "Good work," she murmurs softly. "You've earned your rest." And as the castle wakes far below and the first rays of sunlight catch on the sugar towers of the Candy Kingdom, Princess Bubblegum finally leans her head against her arm, eyes drifting shut. Her heartbeat and the heart she created settle into one rhythm, calm and slow, as the night gives way to the first gentle sighs of morning. The machines whisper into silence. The candle flickers out. And in that tender stillness, the echoes of creation linger quiet, luminous and alive, like a dream that refuses to fade. BMO's screen flickers softly in the dim light of the tree fort. The room around them is still and heavy with sleep. Jake's gentle snores rise and fall like waves, and Finn mumbles something about treasure in his dreams. But BMO is awake, their small body humming faintly with curiosity. Nights like this always feel special quiet, secret filled with invisible possibilities. BMO steps down carefully from the nightstand, their tiny plastic feet tapping lightly against the wooden floor. The air smells faintly of pine and candle wax. A single lantern flickers near the window, painting slow golden reflections across the walls. It's a good night for exploring, BMO thinks. Not the kind of adventure with monsters or quests, but the kind that happens when everyone else is asleep, the gentle, hidden kind that belongs only to them. They pick up a small backpack from beside the bed, one they made out of an old sock stitched together with bright blue thread. Inside are their essentials: a flashlight, a crumpled drawing of a treasure map they made weeks ago, and a little cookie wrapped in tissue paper. Adventure fuel. BMO climbs up to the window, pushing it open just enough to slip through. The cool night air greets them immediately, crisp and filled with the scent of damp grass. The world outside feels different at night, slower, softer. Fireflies hover above the meadow, their lights pulsing like slow music. The moon hangs low, big and silver, lighting the path ahead. Tonight we are explorers, BMO says quietly to themselves, adjusting their backpack with pride. Their voice is barely louder than a whisper, yet it feels big in the quiet. Captain BMO reporting for duty. They march forward into the grass, each step creating a faint crunch. The blades reach up past their legs, brushing against their sides as they move. A little breeze carries whispers from the forest nearby, the gentle rustle of leaves, the sound of distant frogs. It feels alive in a way that daytime never quite does. At the edge of the meadow, BMO finds the old path leading into the woods. It's a familiar road, one they've walked many times during the day. But at night, everything feels new again. The trees look taller, their shapes darker and stranger. The shadows stretch long and deep, forming patterns across the ground that look like rivers of ink. BMO isn't afraid, though. They know this forest, and it knows them. "Hello, forest," BMO says softly. "It's me again." Somewhere in the distance, a branch creaks in answer. BMO grins. "I knew you'd remember me." They begin their walk beneath the canopy, guided by the beam of their little flashlight. The light bounces off moss and bark, catching glimpses of tiny creatures hiding in the roots. BMO stops to examine a snail slowly crossing their path, its shell glistening like a pearl in the moonlight. "You are doing a good job, little snail," they tell it sincerely. "Keep up the good work." After a few minutes, BMO reaches a clearing where a broken swing hangs from an old oak tree. The rope is frayed, and the seat covered in moss, but BMO remembers when Finn and Jake used to play here. They used to push each other until they both laughed so hard they fell into the grass. Now the swing just sways gently on its own, creaking quietly in the wind. BMO climbs up onto the seat and gives a small push. The swing moves slowly at first, then higher with each motion, the forest spinning softly around them. "Whee!" BMO says, smiling, their screen displaying a happy face. The stars above blur into streaks of silver lights. For a moment, BMO feels like they're flying. Then the swing slows again, the motion fading back into stillness. The forest hums quietly around them. BMO looks up at the stars, the patterns scattered across the sky like pixel dust. "I wonder," they say to the sky, "if stars ever get lonely." The night answers with silence. But to BMO, silence is not empty. It's full of voices that only quiet hearts can hear. They hop off the swing and continue down the trail until they find a small stream. The water glows faintly under the moonlight, moving in soft ribbons over smooth stones. BMO kneels beside it and peers into the surface. Their reflection ripples, the pixels of their face distorting and reforming. "Hi, me," BMO says cheerfully. Their reflection winks back. They dip a hand into the water. It's cool and gentle against their metal fingers. For a while, they just sit there, watching the tiny currents and the way they catch the moonlight. If Finn were here, BMO muses softly, he'd say this is the kind of place where magic starts. They tilt their head thoughtfully. Maybe magic doesn't start anywhere. Maybe it's always just here, waiting. They sit quietly for a long moment, listening to the water and the rustling leaves. Then they reach into their backpack and take out the crumple drawing the map. It's not really a map to anywhere real, just a collection of doodles and dreams, a cave shaped like a face, a tower of clouds, a treasure chest, hidden under a tree. But BMO treats it seriously. Every good explorer needs a goal, even if that goal is imagination itself. "Next stop," BMO declares softly, pointing down the stream. "The Tower of Clouds." The stream winds deeper into the forest, and BMO follows its glow. The moonlight reflects off the water, creating a path of silver light that feels like a guide. They hum a little tune as they go, a simple melody made of 4 notes that loop endlessly. It's one of Finn's lullabies, though they've added their own twist to it. As they walk, they begin to imagine the adventure unfolding around them. The trees become tall giants guarding ancient secrets. The stones along the path become stepping stones across hidden kingdoms, and the breeze becomes a whisper from some faraway place beyond the stars. Even though BMO knows it's all pretend, it feels real enough to fill their chest with quiet excitement. That's the kind of adventure they love, one that doesn't need battles or trophies, just wonder. The forest opens up again, and BMO finds themselves standing before an old wooden structure half hidden by vines. It's a lookout tower, long abandoned, its stairs creaking with age. The moonlight spills through the gaps, lighting it like a beacon. BMO tilts their heads, studying it with admiration. "You must be the Tower of Clouds," they whisper, smiling. "Nice to meet you." They begin the climb carefully, one small step at a time, their hands gripping the rough edges of the wood. Each board sighs softly under their weight, but the tower holds steady. As BMO ascends, the forest below becomes smaller, the world spreading out like a dream made of green and silver. When they finally reach the top, they set down their backpack and look out across the land. The view steals even BMO's words for a moment, the river winding like a glowing thread, the mountains silhouetted against the horizon, and the stars stretching forever. "This is nice," BMO says finally, their voice barely more than a whisper. "Really nice." They sit down, legs dangling over the edge, and gaze out into the night. The air is cool, the world quiet. And for a moment, everything feels still, perfectly still, as if the universe itself is holding its breath. BMO takes a slow, thoughtful breath. The air up here feels different, clearer, like it's been waiting all night for someone to notice how soft it is. The wind brushes past their screen, carrying the faint smell of pine and distant rain. They close their eyes for a moment and let it pass through them, a tiny robot in the middle of a vast, breathing world. When they open their eyes again, the moon has shifted higher, painting everything below in gentle silver light. From this height, the forest looks like a sea waves of leaves moving in rhythm with the wind. Every tree is a ripple, every rustle a whisper. BMO imagines it's a sleeping creature, and they are the only one awake inside its dream. They reach into their backpack and pull out the small cookie wrapped in paper. Snack time, they say softly. Crumbs sprinkle across their lap as they take a delicate bite. Perfect. Eating is more about ritual than need for BMO, but it's a comforting one. They always pretend it gives them energy, just like it does for Finn. As they nibble, they start to talk to themselves, not because they're lonely, but because words sound beautiful in the quiet. You know, they say to the open air, people always think adventures have to be big, but the best ones are small, like this. They gesture toward the horizon, where the first pale glimmer of dawn begins to touch the sky. No monsters, no danger, just the world being itself. Their voice trails off as they stare at that faint line of color, spreading upward lavender, melting into blue. It reminds them of when Finn used to wake early just to watch the sunrise from this very forest. He would laugh and say, "Every day is a reset button." BMO smiles at the memory, their pixelated face forming a tiny heart. They finish their cookie and brush off the crumbs, then lean back, resting their head against the old wooden railing. The stars are still there, dimmer now, but still patient. BMO studies them the way an artist studies a canvas. They think of each one as a memory, some bright and new, some faint and ancient. Each flicker is a story. BMO likes stories. They believe everything in the world tells one, even if nobody's listening. The creaking of the tower, the soft buzz of insects, the slow blink of stars, all of it is language, just quieter. "Hello, everyone," BMO whispers upward. "You're doing great." Something about that feels right. The forest seems to respond, shifting gently beneath the wind. A few leaves drift through the air, catching the light like tiny green comets. BMO reaches out and lets one land on their hand. Its edges are cool and slightly wet from dew. They look at it carefully, as though it's a treasure. "You traveled all this way just to visit," they say warmly. "Thank you." Then they place it beside them, like an honored guest. Minutes pass in peaceful silence. BMO's screen flickers softly, displaying shapes, circles, and stars and lines, as if their mind is drawing what they see. They hum again, the same four-note melody as before. The tune mixes with the wind and seems to echo faintly through the forest. After a while, they decide to record the moment. They pull out a tiny handheld recorder from their backpack, one of PB's old gadgets she let them keep. They press the button, and a small red light blinks to life. "Captain's log," BMO says in their soft, steady voice. "It's very late, or maybe very early. I found the Tower of Clouds, and it's even better than I imagined. The sky is full of stars that look like candy sprinkles. The wind sounds like a lullaby." They pause, then add with a smile, "Mission complete. Feel happy and peaceful." The recorder clicks softly as they stop the recording. BMO sets it down beside them, hands folded neatly on their lap. The world below continues its slow dance. The trees move, the water glimmers. The night exhales. BMO sighs contentedly. "I wish I could save this forever." Their screen flickers briefly as they imagine a save icon appearing, a little floppy disk symbol glowing in the air. They press an invisible button and say, "File saved." Then they giggle quietly at their own game. But even as they joke, something about the moment does feel like it's being saved. Not in memory or data, but in a deeper way, as though the night itself remembers. The forest hums, and the wind shifts. A few clouds drift across the moon, softening its glow. Everything feels like it's preparing for morning. BMO can sense it, that subtle change when night begins to surrender to dawn. It makes them feel calm, but also a little wistful. "Good night, Moon," BMO says quietly. "You did a good job lighting everything." Then they look toward the horizon again, where the colors are deepening gold, beginning to bloom at the edge of blue. It's strange, they think, how every ending comes with a beginning attached. That's what makes life exciting. You never really lose the moment. It just becomes the next thing. BMO picks up their recorder again. Captain's log, they whisper softly. The mission continues. Next objective, watch the sunrise and tell the world it looks beautiful. They tuck the recorder away and settle back, resting their hands behind their head. The old tower creaks gently beneath them. But BMO doesn't mind. It's all part of the lullaby, the song of things that last through time. And as the first streaks of gold stretch across the sky, the world begins to glow. BMO smiles, the reflection of dawn glimmering across their screen like liquid light. They whisper to themselves, everything is okay. And the forest, the wind, and the soft rising sun seem to agree. The first light of morning begins to touch the highest leaves, turning them into tiny lanterns of gold. BMO sits still, watching as the colors change. Blue becomes pale rose, then amber. The forest wakes up in slow motion, as if stretching after a long, gentle dream. Birds begin to sing, one at a time, tentative and soft. The air is filled with tiny movements, the whisper of wings, the rustle of fur in the underbrush, the shimmer of dew sliding from petal to soil. BMO tilts their head listening. The sounds are comforting, but also layered, each one perfectly placed, like notes in a quiet song. It's starting, they whisper, smiling. The world is turning itself back on. They stand up and dust themselves off, brushing away the tiny bits of bark that clung to their knees. From up here, the path back on looks longer than before. The tower's spiral steps twist through the mist like ribbons. It doesn't matter, though. BMO likes long walks. Every step feels like a new thought. Before leaving, they take one last look at the view. The horizon now burns with warm light, and the stars have completely faded. But BMO knows they're still there, hidden in the brightness. They always are. That thought makes them smile, the idea that something can disappear from sight and still exist completely. Good night, stars, they whisper softly. See you later. Then carefully, they begin the slow walk down the stairs. The wood creaks beneath their tiny feet, but the sound feels friendly. As they descend, they hum again the same little four-note song, but slower now, like a farewell. Halfway down, they pause beside a small window carved into the side of the tower. Through it, they can see a stretch of ruins tucked beneath the trees, old stone buildings wrapped in vines and moss. Their roofs have collapsed long ago, but inside, sunlight pours through the cracks, turning dust into gold. BMO feels a soft tug of curiosity. Maybe one more adventure, they say. Before breakfast, they hop off the staircase and land gently on a lower branch, bouncing slightly before steadying themselves. From there, they make their way toward the ruins, stepping across roots and moss, like an explorer crossing forgotten worlds. The ground is cool and damp beneath their feet, and every step releases the faint scent of wet earth. When they finally reach the ruins, they find them silent and still. The walls are etched with strange, faded patterns, spirals and symbols that look almost like letters. BMO runs their hand over one of them. The stone is cold, but it hums faintly beneath their touch. Hello, they whisper. You used to be something, huh? A leaf drifts down beside them, landing gently on the carved stone. Sunlight filters through the broken roof, painting shifting shapes across the floor. The whole place feels like a memory trying to tell its story. BMO sits cross-legged in the center of what must have once been a great hall. They close their eyes and imagine it filled with light people talking, laughing, creating things. They picture someone sitting right where they are now, maybe carving the symbols into the wall and trying to leave a message for the future. What were you trying to say? BMO wonders quietly. For a moment, the wind picks up, and a few petals from the nearby trees swirl through the air, circling them like tiny dancers. It feels like an answer, soft and wordless. BMO smiles. I get it. You were just trying to be remembered. They stay there for a while, not moving, not speaking, just letting the place breathe around them. The longer they sit, the more they feel connected to it, not as a visitor, but as part of its story. Every bit of stone and dust feels alive in its own way. Eventually, a sound breaks the quiet, a distant, familiar bark echoing faintly through the forest. BMO perks up immediately. "Jake!" they call, standing quickly. The bark comes again, closer this time. It's followed by a deep, friendly voice, faint but clear. "BMO? That you, buddy?" BMO's screen lights up in delight. "Jake, over here!" Moments later, Jake emerges from between two overgrown pillars, stretching as he walks. He looks relaxed, his fur golden in the sunlight, eyes still heavy with sleep. "What are you doing out here so early?" he asks with a lazy grin. "Exploring," BMO says proudly. "I found the Tower of Clouds, and now I'm learning the language of ruins." Jake chuckles. "Of course you are. You're always up to something fun." He yawns and stretches again, his body elongating slightly before snapping back to shape. "Man, I was hoping to find a snack stand out here or something." BMO giggles. "There's no snack stand, Jake. Only stories." Jake raises an eyebrow, amused. "Stories, huh? Those don't taste as good as pancakes." "Maybe not," BMO replies, "but they fill you up in other ways." Jake smiles at that, rubbing the back of his head. "You know, for a tiny robot, you're pretty wise." They start walking together through the ruins. Jake's big steps make soft thuds on the mossy floor, while BMO's tiny feet make almost no sound at all. The two of them move in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the forest slowly waking around them. Eventually, Jake says, "You want to head back home? I think Finn's still asleep, but I could whip up some breakfast." BMO looks back at the ruins one last time. The sunlight has now fully claimed them, making the old stones glow. "Yeah," they say softly, "let's go home." And together they walk down the forest path, the morning light following them, soft and golden. BMO feels a small warmth inside their circuits, not just from the sun, but from something deeper. The kind of warmth that comes from being exactly where you're supposed to be, at exactly the right time. The world hums around them. Every rustle, every step, every flicker of light feels like part of a grand, quiet rhythm, a song meant only for those who take the time to listen. As Jake and BMO make their way through the waking forest, the light thickens around them like honey poured across the trees. The path is scattered with fallen petals, glimmering faintly in the gold of early morning. Each step stirs the mist, still hanging close to the ground. Their shadows move softly beside them, long and gentle, as if walking in another world just a few seconds behind. Oh, Jake hums a lazy tune while stretching one arm to pluck a low-hanging fruit from a branch. He tosses it in the air, catches it in his mouth, and smiles. "You know, BMO," he says between bites, "I think I kind of like these quiet mornings. No monsters, no big missions. Just me, you, and a bunch of trees trying their best to look fancy." BMO laughs in that bright little way of theirs. "They do look fancy," they agree. "Look at how the sun paints them. Every leaf is wearing gold." Jake looks up, thoughtful now. "Yeah, never noticed that before." The path winds toward a shallow river, its surface still and glassy. The two of them pause at its edge. Tiny fish shimmer beneath the water like moving bits of ski. Jake dips a paw in, making ripples that distort their reflections. "Hey, BMO," he says softly. "You ever think about how much stuff in this world is just waiting to be noticed?" BMO looks down at the ripples, then at Jake. "Yes, I think about that all the time." They kneel by the riverbank, their screen flickering softly as if recording the moment. "Everything is waiting," they continue, "but not impatiently, just kindly." Jake nods slowly. "That's a good way to put it." He sits down beside them, the water brushing against his toes. "You know, Finn used to get antsy when there wasn't any adventure. He thought quiet days meant he wasn't doing enough, but maybe this, he gestures around them, is the best kind of adventure. The kind where nothing's chasing you, and you can actually hear yourself think. BMO tilts their head. Do you miss that? The wild adventures? Jake smiles wistfully. Sometimes, but not in a sad way. Those days are part of me. Now I like the quiet ones, too. Feels like I'm catching up with the world again. The sound of the river fills the space between their words. For a long moment, neither speaks. The forest hums, the water murmurs, and time seems to stretch soft and endless. BMO finally breaks the silence. I think the world talks to you differently when you're quiet. Jake chuckles. Yeah? What's it saying now? BMO listens intently, their little antenna twitching slightly. It's saying, thank you for noticing. Jake's eyes soften, and he leans back, resting his head against a smooth stone. Then I guess we should say, thank you back. BMO nods. Thank you, world. The trees sway gently, and a cool breeze flows over them like a sigh of agreement. BMO smiles, the expression simple and bright. They pick up a small pebble and toss it into the water. The ripples move outward, each one wider and fainter than the last, until they vanish completely. Jake watches the circles fade. You ever notice how even little things make big ripples? Yes, BMO says softly. Even tiny ones like me. Jake reaches out and pats them gently on the head. You make some of the best ripples there are. The two sit together as the day grows brighter. Sunlight filters through the trees in thick, warm beams. A bird lands nearby, hopping close enough that BMO can see the shimmer of blue and green in its feathers. They greet it quietly, and the bird tilts its head as if listening. It chirps once, then takes flight again, vanishing into the bright canopy above. Do you think it understood you? Jake asks. BMO shrugs. Maybe not with words, but maybe with feeling. Jake grins. I like that. Talking with feeling. He stands and stretches, the golden light glinting off his fur. Come on, let's head home before Finn wakes up and thinks we ran off on another quest. BMO hops up beside him, holding out their hand. Let's race! Jake chuckles. Race? You sure? You got tiny legs, buddy. I have determination, BMO replies with mock seriousness. Jake laughs and takes off at an easy pace. BMO sprints beside him, their little legs working furiously, laughter spilling through the air. The forest opens around them as they run, trees giving way to the gentle clearing where the tree fort rises, its windows glowing softly in the early light. By the time they reach the steps, both are breathless with laughter. Jake leans against the trunk, still smiling. All right, you win. BMO raises their arms triumphantly. Victory! Inside, the fort smells of pancakes and syrup, faint and familiar. Finn must already be awake. From the kitchen, a sleepy voice calls out. Jake, BMO, you guys up already? Jake grins. Looks like breakfast ready. They head inside, and for a moment, the world outside fades into a gentle hum. The sound of forks, quiet chatter, and morning birds blends into a peaceful rhythm. As BMO sits on the windowsill looking out toward the brightening sky, they record one last note. Captain's log, they whisper. The mission is complete. The world is awake again, and everything feels just right. They pause, thinking, then add softly, maybe adventures don't end. They just get quieter. Jake hears the whisper and nods approvingly. You said it, little buddy. And outside, the sun continues to rise, slow, golden, patient lighting every ripple, every leaf, every stone, as if the world itself is smiling. The day begins gently with laughter and the warmth of company, and somewhere deep in the forest, the tower of clouds and the silent ruins wait once more, dreaming quietly of visitors yet to come. The night begins gently, with a soft lavender haze settling over the land of O. The day's warmth lingers just long enough to tint the clouds a pale pink before they drift into shadow. Somewhere high above the quiet valleys, Marceline floats, her bass slung across her back, her hair trailing behind her like an ink river spilling into the sky. She doesn't fly fast. Not tonight. The wind is calm, and the moon is full, and there's no rush to be anywhere. This is her favorite time, not quite night, not quite morning, when the world feels like it's holding its breath. The air hums faintly, alive with crickets, and the slow rhythm of the sleeping world. Marceline closes her eyes for a moment and lets the wind carry her. There's no destination, no plan, just the gentle pull of the night, guiding her somewhere familiar, somewhere quiet. She's always liked being awake when everyone else is asleep. It feels like the world is hers alone for a little while. Below her, the dark stretches out in every direction. Forests ripple like velvet. Rivers glint faintly in the moonlight, and the distant mountains look like sleeping giants wrapped in silver mist. Every so often, a tiny light flickers a candle in a cottage window, or a campfire left to die out slowly. Each one feels like a heartbeat, soft and steady. Marceline drifts lower, letting her boots brush against the treetops. The leaves shiver at her touch, whispering secrets only the night knows. She hums quietly to herself, a low tune that mixes with the sound of the wind. The melody is simple, a little sad, but peaceful. It's one of those songs that never needed words. Eventually, she finds herself hovering above a small clearing, one she remembers from years ago. There's an old log there, half covered in moss, and beside it, a smooth stone she once used as a seat while playing for no one but the stars. She lands softly, the grass bending under her boots. For a while, she just stands there listening. The forest is awake in its own slow way. There's the rustle of wings, the faint sigh of distant water, and the heartbeat of the ground itself, deep and slow. Everything feels alive, yet still. She unstraps her bass and sits on the stone, letting the cool air wrap around her like a blanket. The moonlight paints her skin silver, and her eyes catch the faint red shimmer of her old, quiet hunger. But it's gentle now. She's learned to live with it. The night feeds her in different ways. Her fingers rest on the strings, and without thinking, she begins to play. The first notes are low and soft, like a heartbeat underwater. Then the melody rises, flowing out through the trees, carrying pieces of her memories. Each note seems to reach into the past, a voice she once heard, a laugh that still lingers, the faint echo of her mother's lullaby. Music has always been her way of remembering. It's how she speaks to the world when words feel too small. And tonight, the world listens. The forest seems to lean closer, the leaves trembling faintly as the song weaves through the air. It's not a sad song exactly, but it's honest. It tells of long nights and long years of things lost and things found again. It's about learning to be alone without being lonely. A gentle smile flickers across her face as she plays. She thinks of Finn and Jake, probably asleep in their fort right now, dreaming of something silly and bright. She thinks of Bubblegum, likely still awake, bent over her experiments under soft pink lamplight. And she thinks of all the nights she used to wander without knowing where she belonged. Now it feels different. The loneliness that once pressed down on her has softened, turned into something lighter, solitude maybe, or peace. She finishes the melody, letting the final note fade into the forest until it's swallowed by the night. For a while, she just sits there quiet. The moon is high now, pouring silver light through the branches. Fireflies blink lazily nearby, drifting through the air like tiny lanterns. Marceline reaches out and lets one land on her finger. Its glow paints her hand gold. "You guys never sleep, huh?" she murmurs with a small grin. "Guess we've got that in common." The firefly takes off again, and Marceline stands stretching her wings. The air feels cooler now, crisp and sweet. She takes a deep breath, not because she needs it, but because it feels good to pretend she does. Then she begins to walk, not fly, through the forest. Her boots make almost no sound against the moss, and the trees part gently as she passes. Every step takes her deeper into memory. This forest used to be different. Long ago, it was a city, one of the many swallowed by time after the Mushroom War. She remembers when she first wandered here, how the cracked streets had begun to sprout trees, how the silence was heavier then. But nature has a way of forgiving. Now, where there was once rubble, there are roots. Where glass once cut the ground, there are wildflowers. The forest is healed, even if the ghosts still hum faintly beneath the soil. Marceline kneels and brushes her fingers across a half-buried piece of metal street sign, its letters worn away. You've had a long journey, too. Guess we both made it through. The wind shifts, carrying the faint smell of lilac and rain. Somewhere far away, thunder murmurs softly, low and gentle. She looks up at the clouds, seeing the faint pulse of lightning within them, like a heartbeat glowing behind skin. It's beautiful in its own strange way, the sky remembering how to breathe. She feels a song forming again, not from sadness, but from gratitude. The kind of song that doesn't need to be heard by anyone to be real. And so she begins to hum again, letting the notes drift upward toward the clouds until they vanish into the dark, like whispers carried by the wind. The storm never fully arrives. It lingers at the edge of the world, breathing softly, just enough to stir the trees and sprinkle the night with cool air. Marceline tilts her head back, watching the clouds drift. Each one glows faintly with flashes of hidden lightning, too distant to make sound. They look alive, like slow-moving creatures suspended between sleep and wakefulness. She lets her wings unfold again, and with one small push from the ground, she rises above the treetops. The air is cooler up here, carrying the scent of wet leaves and distant rain. Below, the forest spreads endlessly dark, mysterious, and full of gentle noise. Every sound is magnified in the stillness. The creak of branches, the ripple of water far away, the quiet sigh of the earth itself. Marceline hums softly to herself as she floats, letting her fingers trail through the air like she's strumming invisible strings. The tune is new, something made only for tonight. It feels light, playful, and strangely comforting. She doesn't try to remember it. Not every song needs to last forever. Some are meant to exist only for the moment they're played. As she drifts over the forest, she spots a familiar shape rising from the trees, the remains of an old radio tower. It's bent and rusted, its top half lost long ago, but its metal still catches the moonlight like silver bone. Marceline smiles. She hasn't been here in ages. She glides down, landing gently on the tower's side, perching near the broken platform. From up here, she can see the distant lights of the Candy Kingdom twinkling faintly like stars that fell to the earth. She sits cross-legged and takes her bass from her back, the strings humming softly as her fingers brush against them. The wind whistles through the hollow structure, and the sound blends perfectly with the first low note she plays. The tower becomes an instrument of its own, vibrating with her melody. She laughs quietly. "Guess you missed me, huh?" she says to the metal beams. For a while, she plays without thinking, letting the song spill out and echo through the open air. The music flows outward, bouncing between the hills and trees. Somewhere, a flock of birds takes off from the canopy, their wings catching the moonlight as they rise. It's as if they're answering her in flight. She closes her eyes, letting the rhythm guide her hands. The song turns slower, deeper, a lullaby for the sky. She remembers the nights she used to sit here centuries ago, waiting for the world to make sense. She remembers the ache of silence after too many goodbyes. She remembers the first time she realized that loneliness could be beautiful if you learned how to listen to it. When the last note fades, she opens her eyes again. The world feels softer somehow, like the air itself has grown tired and content. Marceline leans back, resting her head against one of the cold beams. "Still here," she murmurs, half to herself, half to the world. "Guess that's something." Below her, the forest sways gently. A few bats flutter by, their wings slicing through the moonlight in smooth arcs. One of them circles her once before settling on a nearby beam. It hangs upside down, staring at her with tiny black eyes. Marceline smiles. "Hey there, little dude. You on patrol tonight, too?" The bat makes a small, chittering sound, and Marceline chuckles. "Yeah, me neither. Just keeping the night company." She sits quietly with her new companion, watching the stars slowly shift overhead. The constellations are familiar, but never the same, always changing, always moving. It reminds her that even the sky drifts, even it gets lost sometimes. She pulls her knees to her chest and hums again, softer this time. The bat flutters its wings in rhythm with the tune, like it understands. Far away, she can see a faint glow spreading along the horizon. Not the sun yet, but the promise of it. That quiet hour before dawn when the world feels suspended between what was and what will be. Marceline loves this part of the night most of all. It's where everything rests. Memories, hopes, the weight of old days, all wrapped up in silence. Her eyes wander across the sky, tracing shapes in the faint clouds. She imagines stories hidden there, kingdoms built on starlight, dreams that drift too far from their dreamers, songs sung by the wind to the moon. "Maybe that's what keeps me walking," she says quietly. "There's always another story hiding somewhere out here." The bat gives a small sound, almost like a reply. Marceline smiles again and stands, stretching her wings. "All right, buddy, time to move on." With a gentle push, she rises into the air once more, leaving the tower behind. The metal hums faintly as the wind rushes through it, as if it's finishing her song long after she's gone. She glides higher, cutting through the thin veil of clouds, and the world opens below her, rivers glowing faintly. Mountains wrapped in fog, the first blush of dawn gathering far away. It's all quiet and endless and alive, a sleeping world still dreaming of itself. Marceline breathes in deeply, letting the stillness settle in her chest. Nights like this remind her that she doesn't need to be chasing something to feel alive. Sometimes just existing, just seeing, just feeling is enough. And so with the forest stretching endlessly below, she keeps drifting, slow and steady, letting the wind carry her wherever it wants to go. The wind carries Marceline across the rolling darkness, and the land below changes like the turning of a record. Forests fade into crumbling plains, and the plains break apart into patches of old ruins, stone teeth jutting from the ground. The air feels different here, older, heavier, touched by memories that never quite faded. She can almost hear them whisper through the cracks of the old world. She slows down, hovering above a sunken street half swallowed by roots and moss. The faded outlines of signs still hang from leaning poles, the remains of an ancient human town. The buildings stand like exhausted giants, their windows empty, their walls carved by time. Marceline lands on the cracked pavement, her boots crunching softly against gravel. She folds her wings away and just stands there, looking. There's something about this place that feels familiar. Maybe she came here once a long time ago. Maybe she played her music on one of these rooftops back when the world was still learning how to breathe again. She walks slowly, her reflection flickering in the puddles left by the night's mist. Each one shows her face as it was, and as it might have been shifting between the vampire queen and the girl she once was. A faint hum reaches her ears, gentle but distinct. She follows it, weaving through the skeletons of buildings until she finds its source, an old vending machine glowing faintly with a soft pink light. Its glass is cracked, its buttons faded, but somehow it still hums, alive in its own quiet way. Marceline grins. Well, look who's still running. She kneels, peering through the glass. Inside, a single can rests among the dust, the label too faded to read. She presses one of the buttons for fun, not expecting anything, but the machine sputters and whirs weakly. To her surprise, the can drops with a dull clunk. She laughs in disbelief, picking it up. The metal is cold, the liquid inside sloshing faintly. Guess you've been saving this one for me, she says, lifting it in a mock toast to the machine. She sits down on the curb and opens it. The hiss is sharp and clean, echoing faintly down the empty street. The drink tastes faintly metallic, almost sweet, like memory. She takes a long sip and looks around. The quiet hum of the machine keeps her company. She starts to hum again, her voice blending with the distant wind. This one's a lazy tune, wandering and warm. As she sings, something flickers faint blue light rising from the cracks in the pavement. It weaves through the air like slow fireflies, spiraling around her. The ruins aren't empty after all. The world remembers her song. Marceline's eyes soften. Still listening, huh? She says quietly. That's nice. The air around her glows for a while, the blue light pulsing gently with the rhythm of her voice. Then, one by one, the lights fade back into the earth, leaving only the soft sound of wind and her fading melody. She finishes her drink and sets the can gently beside the vending machine. Thanks for the chat, she says, giving it a light tap. You're better company than most ghosts. She stands, stretching, and the faint sound of thunder murmurs in the distance again. The clouds are gathering, thicker now, painting the sky with slow-moving shadows. Marceline looks up and smiles. Guess I should keep moving. She walks to the edge of the broken street where the ruins open into a wide valley. It's filled with fog, curling and twisting like living silk. Beyond it, mountains rise like sleeping beasts, their peaks barely visible through the mist. She opens her wings and steps forward, letting herself fall gently into the air. The fog wraps around her cool and soft, carrying the faint scent of rain and stone. Shapes drift past the outlines of old cars, trees grown through their roofs, fragments of billboards swallowed by ivy. Everything looks fragile, caught between the past and the present. Halfway through the valley, she spots something glowing faintly below. Curious, she swoops lower and lands near a cluster of half-buried buildings. The glow comes from a single window still lit in the ruins. She peers inside. It's an old cafe, or what's left of one. Tables covered in dust, chairs toppled, and vines creeping through the walls. But in the center, a single candle burns, flickering with a soft golden light. There's no one there, yet the flame doesn't seem lonely. It dances steadily, as if waiting. Marceline steps inside, careful not to disturb the silence. Her boots leave faint prints on the dusty floor. She sits at one of the tables and watches the flame. The air feels heavy with memory laughter once echoing here, music, warmth. She pulls her bass into her lap and lets her fingers move across the strings, quiet and deliberate. The sound fills the cafe like a heartbeat returning to a body. The candle flickers in rhythm, its light growing brighter with each note. It's not a sad song, not tonight. It's a song for the things that stay, for the light that keeps burning, for the places that keep remembering. The sound bounces gently off the walls, wrapping the ruins in something like peace. When she finishes, the candle burns low, its light soft and steady. Marceline smiles faintly and whispers, "Good night, whoever you were." Then she rises, wings stretching wide again. As she lifts off into the air, the candle's flame trembles once, then steadies, glowing quietly long after she's gone. Above the valley, the moon peeks through the clouds, washing the world in pale silver light. Marceline soars higher, her figure a shadow against the endless sky. Her heart calm, her mind quiet. The night belongs to her, and she belongs to the night, drifting, singing, remembering, and letting go. As Marceline glides above the clouds, the night stretches around her like a soft, endless ocean. The air hums faintly, not from wind, but from the quiet rhythm of the world itself. Down below, the land of Oo lies in shadowed stillness, each place she passes carrying its own small dream. The Candy Kingdom sleeps beneath its glowing towers. Tree fort lanterns flicker in the distance, and even the nightosphere seems hushed, its usual chaos muffled by the deep calm of twilight. She drifts without direction, following instinct more than thought, her wings barely stirring the air. She isn't searching for anything, not tonight. There's a certain peace in simply wandering, in existing between the beats of life's louder moments. In these hours, she doesn't have to be the vampire queen, or the ancient musician, or the lonely soul remembering too much. She's just Marceline, and the night is her friend. The wind carries a soft scent of pine and stone, and she follows it until she reaches the edge of a forest glowing faintly with blue mushrooms. Their light spreads like fallen stars across the ground, turning the mist into drifting constellations. She lands quietly among them, boots sinking into the damp earth. The air hums faintly, alive with tiny insects and the whisper of distant water. Marceline crouches and touches one of the mushrooms. It pulses gently under her fingers, glowing a little brighter in response. "Hey there, little dude," she says softly, as if greeting an old friend. "You're holding up the forest tonight, huh?" She walks deeper into the glowing woods, brushing past ferns and twisted roots. The deeper she goes, the quieter it becomes until she hears it. The faint trickle of a stream winding its way between stones. The water glows faintly, reflecting the mushrooms as blue light. She kneels by the bank and trails her hand through the surface. It's cool and smooth, carrying the reflections of the night sky like liquid glass. She pulls out her small, beaten-up notebook, the one she sometimes uses to jot down lyrics, and flips through the pages. Most are filled with fragments, half-finished songs, stray thoughts, doodles. She finds a blank page and sits there for a while, thinking. Then slowly she begins to write. Her pen moves lazily, words forming with the same rhythm as her breath. The song isn't about sadness or loneliness this time. It's about the in-between moments, the quiet walks, the half-remembered dreams, the comfort of places that ask for nothing. She hums the melody as she writes, her voice soft and low. When she looks up, she notices the water has stilled completely, mirroring her face perfectly. But it isn't just her face she sees. For a heartbeat, there's another reflection beside her. A faint, familiar shape with wild blonde hair and an easy smile. Finn. It's not really him, just the memory of countless nights spent together, the laughter, the music, the strange little adventures that never made it into anyone's stories. She smiles faintly and whispers, "Hey, kid. Hope you're sleeping okay." The reflection ripples, and when it clears, it's just her again. But the warmth lingers. A single drop of water falls from a leaf above, landing in the stream and sending soft ripples through the reflection. Marceline closes her notebook and stands, tucking it into her jacket. She takes one last look at the glowing forest, the blue light swaying gently like lullabies made visible. When she spreads her wings again, they catch the light, scattering it across the trees. The forest seems to shimmer as she rises, the colors shifting between silver and violet. The moon has climbed higher now, round and gentle, casting her shadow across the canopy like a drifting echo. She flies until the woods fade into open plains. Below her, the grass waves in long silver lines, whispering as it bends under the night wind. She slows, letting the world move beneath her, and begins to sing again. It's a soft tune, something she hums only for herself. Her voice carries across the fields, blending with the wind. Somewhere far away, maybe a creature lifts its head to listen. Maybe the stars themselves lean a little closer. The melody has no beginning and no end, just a slow, steady rhythm that drifts through the quiet. For a moment, everything feels connected: the earth, the ruins, the sleeping kingdoms, the forgotten forests, every sound and shadow part of the same endless lullaby. Marceline closes her eyes and lets the night cradle her. The weight of the centuries seems to fall away, replaced by something smaller and kinder. The simple peace of being here now in this gentle sliver of time. She finally lands near the edge of a cliff, one she's visited many times before. Below, the world spreads out in a vast sea of mist, the horizon glowing faintly with the coming dawn. She sits on the edge, base resting beside her, and leans back on her hands. The wind brushes through her hair, cool and clean. It's strange, she thinks, how the quietest nights often hold the deepest meaning. The ones without battles, without noise or purpose, just wandering, remembering, feeling. She takes a deep breath, letting it out slowly. The stars begin to fade one by one as the first light touches the sky. Marceline doesn't move. She stays there, watching the colors shift from indigo to rose, then to soft gold. When the sun finally rises, she smiles faintly, almost to herself. "Guess I'll call it a night," she murmurs, her voice barely louder than the breeze. She picks up her bass, gives the horizon a little salute, and steps backward into the shade. The light spills across the cliffside, but Marceline is already gone, carried back into the sleeping corners of the world, where songs are half-dreamed and the quiet never ends. The Candy Kingdom sleeps differently from the rest of Oo. Its nights are gentle, sugar-sweet, and filled with the hum of tiny machines keeping the city's colors from fading. The air always smells faintly of caramel and soft vanilla. Even when everything grows still, there's a quiet shimmer in the streets, like the memory of laughter echoing from the day before. Tonight, the moonlight bends through the stained glass towers, scattering pink and gold reflections across the candy brick walls. The kingdom feels peaceful on the surface, but beneath its bright facades and frosting-like rooftops, the night has its own stories, the kind no one writes down, the kind that happen while everyone else is fast asleep. Long after curfew, when the last of the banana guards have dozed off at their posts, a soft tapping sound echoes through one of the narrow alleyways behind the central square. It's Peppermint Butler, dressed in his small dark cloak, carrying a glass jar that glows faintly blue. His footsteps make no sound on the sugar-stone pavement. He moves quickly, glancing up now and then at the distant spire of Princess Bubblegum's castle. Inside the jar, something flickers, a small swirl of luminescent mist, pulsing in rhythm like a heartbeat. He mutters quietly to himself, his words almost too low to catch. One more ingredient. Just one more. He slips through a hidden archway behind the confectionery and descends a spiral staircase lit by softly glowing jelly lanterns. The air grows cooler as he goes deeper, the sweetness of the city above replaced by the faint smell of chalk and old parchment. This is one of the Candy Kingdom's secret layers, an underground archive that few even know exists. Rows of shelves stretch endlessly, holding jars, books, and curious candy-shaped devices. Peppermint Butler sets his jar carefully on a table shaped like a melted sugar drop and unrolls a faded scroll. The paper hums faintly, alive with old enchantments. He studies it with a smile that's half mischief, half reverence. He's not doing anything dangerous tonight, not quite. Just a little maintenance, a gentle adjustment to keep certain protective spells running smoothly. The Candy Kingdom, bright and cheerful as it seems, sits atop delicate layers of ancient magic, and every so often, someone has to make sure the balance holds. He lights a small blue flame in his palm and waves it over the scroll. The symbols shimmer, their glow softening, fading from red to gold. The air trembles gently and the walls seem to sigh. Then silence again. He nods to himself, satisfied. Above, the castle hums faintly with energy, the quiet, steady breathing of a living city. Every candy citizen, dreaming in their frosting-covered homes, is unknowingly protected by this soft pulse, this ancient heartbeat of sugar and science. But not everyone in the kingdom is asleep. A few stories away, in a smaller tower on the castle's east side, a window glows faintly pink. Inside, a young gumball guardian, smaller than the ones who stand watch outside, sits by the window with a stack of storybooks. Their round face glimmers in the moonlight as they slowly turn the pages, whispering the tales to themselves. They're reading the old legends of the Candy Kingdom, written long before Princess Bubblegum's rule stories about the first confections, the early sweets who shaped the land before it ever became a kingdom. Their names are strange, like fragments of dreams. The Molasses Monarch, the Marshmallow Seer, the Toffee Twin. Most candy citizens have forgotten them entirely, but this little guardian reads each name carefully, almost reverently. Outside the window, the night breeze stirs faintly, carrying the sound of distant chimes. The guardian pauses, looking out toward the horizon where the stars bend faintly in the direction of the gumdrop hills. For a moment, they could swear they see a faint shape moving there, something tall, something glowing softly blue. They blink, and it's gone. They smile nervously and close the book, hugging it to their chest. Just stories, they whisper, though part of them wonders if the oldest tales ever truly fade in this land made from dreams and sugar. Far below, Peppermint Butler feels the faint shift in the air, too. He looks up, his small eyes narrowing. He murmurs, tilting his head. The scroll on the table flutters slightly, as if stirred by a wind that isn't really there. He waves his hand again, checking the runes, but everything seems calm. Still, he can't shake the sense that something old just stirred something that remembers what the Candy Kingdom used to be before the sweet walls and polished towers. Before it became a kingdom of order and science, it was something wilder. A place of experiments and accidents, of magic mixed with sugar and dreams. He sighs softly and snuffs out the blue flame. Not tonight, he says to the shadows. Let the kingdom rest. He picks up his jar, now glowing a calm golden hue, and begins to climb back toward the surface. Above him, the walls of the archive hum faintly, the vibration of something ancient, breathing slow and steady. The kingdom sleeps, but its heart is still awake. And somewhere above, in the quiet chambers of the castle, Princess Bubblegum herself turns in her bed, her brow furrowing faintly as if she's dreaming of equations or half-formed memories of another time. The pink light from her laboratory windows fades, but beneath the floorboards, something continues to hum a soft rhythm, the pulse of the unseen stories that keep the Candy Kingdom alive. Outside, the night deepens. The streets of the Candy Kingdom gleam faintly under the moonlight, each cobblestone catching the glow as if it remembers sunlight from long ago. The sugary rooftops glisten like frost, and a gentle mist begins to drift through the narrow alleys. From afar, the whole kingdom looks like a dream made solid, a fragile constellation of sweetness floating in a sea of blue. In the plaza, a small fountain shaped like a melting ice cream cone burbles softly, though no one is awake to hear it, except for one. Cinnamon Bun sits on the edge of the fountain, staring at his reflection in the rippling water. His large, uneven eyes blink slowly as he hums to himself. He's not supposed to be awake this late, but sleep never comes easily to him. The night feels too quiet, too thoughtful. He runs a sticky hand through the water, watching the ripples distort his reflection until it looks like another face entirely. Sometimes he wonders if the Candy Kingdom dreams, if all the buildings and suites that make up its body share a single dream, or if each piece of candy dreams alone. Maybe he thinks the whole city is one big dream, and they're all just bits of sugar pretending to be alive for a little while. He laughs softly to himself, a deep, slow sound that echoes through the plaza. "That's silly," he says, shaking his head. But still his smile fades a little. He looks up at the castle's tallest spire, where a faint glow flickers in one of the top windows. "PB's still working," he murmurs. He's not surprised. Princess Bubblegum always seems to be awake, always building, fixing, creating. He likes to imagine that she doesn't sleep because she's guarding everyone's dreams, that while they rest, she keeps the whole kingdom alive with her thoughts. A gust of wind brushes past him, carrying the faintest scent of burnt sugar and something older, something faintly electric. Cinnamon Bun tilts his head. The air feels different for a moment, charged, almost alive. Then, just as quickly, it fades. He decides not to think too much about it, and dips his fingers back into the water. Up in the castle, Princess Bubblegum sits at her desk, staring into a vial of liquid light. Her room is quiet, except for the ticking of her sugar crystal clock and the soft rustle of notes spread across the desk. She's been awake for hours, unable to sleep after feeling that same strange pulse in the air earlier. On the page before her are old sketches, half-finished diagrams of the Candy Kingdom's foundations. She traces a line on the paper with her finger, following the delicate network of runes that weave beneath the city. These aren't her designs, they're far older. Some of them, she realizes, might even predate her own creation. That thought always unsettles her a little. For all her brilliance and control, she sometimes forgets that she wasn't the first to mold the sugar and syrup of this world into life. Someone or something came before her, and their handiwork still breathes quietly beneath everything she built. She adjusts her glasses and studies the map again. One rune near the edge of the parchment glows faintly under the candlelight. It's shaped like a spiral, simple, elegant, endlessly looping. She's seen it before, hidden deep within the kingdom's oldest tunnels. She once tried to decipher it, but could never fully understand its purpose. It resists logic, as if written in a language of memory rather than reason. For a long moment, she simply watches the room glow, lost in thought. Then she sighs softly, sits back, and closes her eyes. Her mind is too full of equations and possibilities, too full of what-ifs. She lets herself breathe slowly, deeply. For the first time that night, she allows her thoughts to drift, to let go of calculations and inventions, and instead just feel the hum of the castle around her. It's subtle, but it's there, a quiet rhythm beneath her feet, steady and comforting. The same pulse Peppermint Butler felt below. Her lips curve into a small smile. "Still with me," she whispers to the walls. "Good." Outside her window, the moon shifts behind a cloud, and the glow of the city dims. The streets, the rooftops, the towers, they all seem to take one slow, collective breath. For a heartbeat, it feels as if the whole Candy Kingdom sighs in its sleep. Princess Bubblegum watches the city from her balcony, arms resting on the cool candy railing. From this height, she can see nearly everything, the gumdrop streets winding like rivers, the flickering lamps, the faint silhouettes of sleeping citizens. And somewhere down below, she spots Cinnamon Bun by the fountain, still awake, still humming softly to himself. She smiles fondly. "He always finds the quietest corners," she murmurs. Maybe that's why the city never feels lonely. A single shooting star streaks across the sky, bright and fast. For just a second, it reflects in the candy glass of her balcony, and then it's gone. But its light lingers faintly in the streets below, shimmering like a blessing over the sleeping kingdom. The night deepens again, calm and slow. But something beneath the surface of the Candy Kingdom stirs, not in danger, not in fear, but in remembrance. The kind of quiet awakening that only happens when the world dreams of itself. Deep below the foundations of the Candy Kingdom, where sunlight and song can no longer reach, there lies another layer older than anything Princess Bubblegum has built. It's not made of sugar or candy stone, but of something stranger. A crystalline substance that hums faintly when touched, as if it remembers voices that once spoke in its halls. The air here is cool and thick with the scent of syrup and thyme. Peppermint Butler moves carefully through these tunnels, holding a lantern shaped like a melted gumdrop. Its flame flickers with soft blue light, casting ghostly reflections across the crystalline walls. He's been here before, though never this deep. Each step echoes gently, the sound swallowed almost immediately by the humming air. He stops at a large archway, half collapsed, with faint runes carved into its edges. The markings pulse with a soft golden glow, the same looping spiral that Princess Bubblegum had seen in her notes. Peppermint traces a finger across one of the symbols. "You again," he mutters quietly. "What are you keeping?" For a moment, nothing happens. Then, as if in answer, a low vibration travels through the floor, almost like the steady rhythm of a heartbeat. The air grows warmer, and his lantern flame flickers. Peppermint's small eyes widen, but he doesn't step back. He just watches. The runes shimmer brighter for a moment, then fade back to their gentle hum. The vibration stops, leaving behind a silence that feels somehow deeper than before. Peppermint exhales slowly, lowering his lantern. "Still dreaming," he says softly. "Good. Let it stay that way." He doesn't disturb the archway any further. Instead, he places a small candy coin on the floor, a quiet offering, a token of respect, and begins the long walk back toward the surface. Above, the first hints of dawn are still hours away. The castle sleeps. The citizens dream. But the unseen foundation beneath their feet continues to hum the old sugarstone, breathing in harmony with the new. The kingdom is alive in every sense of the word, and it remembers. In her room, Princess Bubblegum has finally drifted into a light sleep, her head resting on her desk beside her scattered notes. Her dreams are strange and sweet, and a little sad. She finds herself walking through an endless hallway of candy-colored glass, her footsteps echoing like music. On either side, scenes flicker within the glass memories of her people, of her own creations, of laughter and storms, of rebuilding and forgiving. Then something changes. The glass begins to ripple, as though the hallway itself is made of syrup. The reflections melt together, forming a single image, a tall figure made of soft light, with eyes like molten amber. It looks down at her with a kind of ancient fondness. "You've done well," the figure says, its voice a blend of countless tones, deep, sweet, airy, and strange. "But remember, child of sugar, you are not the first to dream." Bubblegum tries to speak, but her voice doesn't reach the air. The figure continues, gentle and calm. Dreams are not meant to be owned, only continued. And then, as suddenly as it appeared, the vision fades. She's standing alone in the empty hallway again, the air filled with the scent of warm caramel. A faint whisper follows, drifting through the glass like a lullaby. "Keep building, little. The dream isn't done yet." When she wakes, the candle on her desk has burned out, and sunlight is just beginning to spill into the room. For a moment, she sits in silence, unsure if what she saw was a dream or something deeper. Then she stands and walks to the window. The Candy Kingdom glows in the early light, its towers soft and golden, the streets shimmering with dew. The scent of sugar fills the air, and somewhere in the plaza, Cinnamon Bun has finally fallen asleep beside the fountain, head resting against the cool marble edge. A few candy people are starting to stir, stretching and yawning, their voices faint and content. Princess Bubblegum smiles faintly. "You were here before me," she whispers to the air. "And maybe you'll be here long after. But for now, we're sharing this dream." She turns back to her desk, gathering her notes, and begins to write again. Not a new formula this time, not a new invention, just thoughts, impressions, half memories of the dream she had. Words that might one day become a song or a story or just another mystery buried beneath the candy streets. Outside, the sun rises fully, washing the kingdom in pale pink light. The glass towers catch it beautifully, scattering color in all directions. It looks almost alive, as if the entire kingdom is waking from the same dream at once. Peppermint Butler emerges from the lower tunnels, blinking at the brightness. He adjusts his cloak and looks up toward the castle, feeling the faint warmth on his face. Morning again. Guess we made it through another night. And somewhere deep beneath the earth, hidden under layers of sugar and time, the crystalline walls pulse once, almost like a heartbeat answering him. A slow, steady rhythm that says the Candy Kingdom is still dreaming, still alive, and still quietly watching over its people. For now, all is calm. The laughter of waking citizens fills the streets, and the scent of freshly baked pastries drifts through the air. The hidden stories go quiet again, content to rest beneath the surface until the next night calls them back into motion, unseen, unspoken, but always there, woven into the sweet heart of the Candy Kingdom. Later that morning, when the streets have filled with gentle chatter and the sunlight dances through the sugar-glass rooftops, the hidden life of the Candy Kingdom continues to breathe quietly, unseen by most. The marketplace hums with activity, not chaotic, but harmonious, like the low murmur of a lullaby. Candy people trade smiles as much as they trade goods. Peppermint carts roll past walls that still remember whispers from centuries ago. The stones beneath their feet gleam faintly, reflecting the joy above and the memories below. But if you could listen closely past the laughter, past the music of daily life, you might hear it again. That faint hum beneath everything. It's not mechanical. It's not magic exactly. It's something older. The sound of the kingdom itself, remembering what it once was and what it still hopes to be. Up on the highest tower, Princess Bubblegum stands by a window overlooking the city. Her hair glows faintly in the sunlight. In one hand, she holds a glass beaker filled with a slow-moving pink liquid. It catches the light like a captured sunrise. She tilts it, watching it swirl, her mind somewhere, far beyond formulas. The memory of her dream still lingers, that ancient figure of light. Those words that felt both like a warning and a promise. In her lab journal, she's written a new entry. Maybe the kingdom is not only built, maybe it grows. She pauses, staring at the words for a long time. Then she adds another line beneath it. If it dreams, perhaps I should listen. She sets the beaker down, takes a breath, and looks out the window again. Below her, the candy people go about their day blissfully unaware of the unseen pulse beneath them. Peppermint Butler walks through the courtyard carrying a small box wrapped in dark ribbon. Cinnamon Bun snoozes by the fountain again. A group of gumball guardians stand motionless at the gate, their eyes faintly glowing with that same rhythm that hums deep underground. Princess Bubblegum smiles. We're all part of it, she says softly. Even the ones who don't know. As the day fades, the city begins to glow in softer tones. The candy glass takes on a lavender sheen, and the lights flicker on small lanterns shaped like stars strung across the streets and rooftops. Children chase the first fireflies of the evening, their laughter echoing gently between the houses. The kingdom grows quieter, gentler, as if the air itself is preparing for sleep. Peppermint Butler finishes his nightly rounds, locking doors, checking the wards that keep the deeper tunnel sealed. Before he leaves the courtyard, he stops once more near the fountain and touches the edge of the stone. The water ripples faintly, and for a split second, he swears he sees something reflected there. A soft pulse of golden light, faint but alive. He nods once, satisfied. Still dreaming, he murmurs again. That's all that matters. From her tower, Bubblegum watches the kingdom settle into its nightly rhythm. She sees families heading home, Little candy children carrying glowing jelly lanterns, the lights of homes flickering on one by one. She can almost feel the warmth of it radiating through the glass, the heartbeat of her people. It's a living network of dreams and sweetness, built not only by science, but by care, by patience, and by something like love. She whispers, "Sleep well, my kingdom." Down below, the candy people close their shutters, tuck themselves into beds of spun sugar and caramel quilts. The streets fall still. Only the faint sound of the fountain remains, and the quiet hum beneath the earth steady, peaceful, like a lullaby, sung by the world itself. The stars rise high, reflected in the glossy domes of the city. The walls that were once part of some ancient civilization now cradle the gentle lives of new generations. The past and the present breathe together perfectly in sync. Somewhere deep beneath the castle, the crystalline heart glows one slow, steady content. It doesn't speak, it doesn't stir, but it feels. It remembers the laughter above. It remembers the queen who listens, the butler who guards, the people who dream. And in that memory, it rests safe, peaceful, complete. High in her tower, Princess Bubblegum finally leaves her notes aside and curls up beside her window. She doesn't need the candle tonight. The glow of the kingdom below is enough to light the room in soft pink. She watches the horizon fade into indigo, her eyes heavy but calm. For the first time in many nights, she lets herself truly rest, not because her work is done, but because she knows the kingdom itself will keep watching. The hum grows quieter, slower, more like breathing than sound. The night deepens, gentle and endless. The air feels warm, like the aftertaste of sugar on the tongue. Somewhere far below, in the oldest chambers of all, the crystalline walls pulse one final time before sleep, sending a ripple of soft light through the stone. The candy kingdom exhales serene and alive as the stars above twinkle in approval. The kingdom dreams again of sweetness and sorrow, of laughter and creation, of the stories still unwritten, waiting beneath the surface. The kind of dreams that never really end, but simply wait for morning to arrive before beginning again. Good night.